Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me this week, we once again have kind of an almost full crew, less jazz here, but we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on, nerds?
What is going on? We have Frank Bizzani. How you doing, Frank?
Doing good.
Excellent. And Logan Wilkinson. How you doing, Logan?
Doing fantastic.
Wonderful. So today we're going to be talking all about our recent escapades over at Disneyland and California Adventure. Logan and Frank were both made the call to come out to Arizona for their birthdays. Frank to see family, and Logan just to do his kind of annual pilgrimage that he does to a different place. And since we were kind of all in the same neighborhood, we decided to take a little road trip over to Disneyland for a couple days while everybody was here. Before we dive into that, though, a little bit of housekeeping. If you haven't heard, we have a new podcast every Saturday. Me and Logan sit down and talk about some Bond, James Bond 007, over on That Bond Show, over on our YouTube channel. So you can go check that out, youtube.com/thatnerdysite. Peek behind the curtain. We record them a few weeks ahead of schedule. And this coming week, we're going to be recording also with Frank and Cameron joining us to discuss Live and Let Die. So that'll be fun. But as of this episode, we're basically up through Thunderball. So you can go check out our thoughts on all of those early Sean Connery movies. And if you do, please, give a subscribe and keep an eye out. You can also check out Logan is doing written reviews of each of these movies as we go. So you can go check those out on the website at thatnerdysite.com. If you like what you hear on this podcast or any of our podcasts, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast everywhere you can, all that fun stuff. Leave comments, whatever you want to do. Help us kind of get the word out via the algorithms, especially as I see a handful of people kind of pointing this out here. January, in particular, always a lighter month on the, especially on the YouTube side of things. So any extra help, does wonders over there. But with all that little housekeeping out of the way, let's just dive into some Disney stuff. I don't know. I mean, we road tripped out there, so I don't know if you guys want to talk a lot about the kind of the drive to and from or anything, or if we want to just dive straight into Disney times. Anybody got anywhere in particular they want to start?
We can start Disney times.
All right, Disney times.
I think I want to make a quick just mention and shout out to our road trip though.
Okay.
Go figure. If you put poor podcasters in the car, they'll find a way to talk the entire time.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But most importantly, I just want to say massive shout out to Trevor for basically doing all the driving. It was a smooth sailing the entire time.
I will agree.
As always, I feel safe and comforted in the safety of Trevor's arms.
Yeah, I remember you and I talked like in the lead up to it. You hadn't really done a significant drive on the freeway or anything since before the pandemic or anything. So this was definitely you had a little bit of like apprehension going into that. I'm glad to hear that. Like, because it was a smooth trip.
It was a smooth trip. I got used to the speed real fast. Mainly because we had a good build up because it took us forever to get out of Phoenix because I got out of work as rush hour began. Rush hour in the Phoenix metro area goes from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Yeah,
on usual. But yeah, the it was I had gone to a family dinner like 2 weeks before we left, and being on the freeway was like got my adrenaline going, and it's like, what in the world has happened? It's like, oh yeah, you have not gone fast.
Mm-hmm.
You have not gone faster than 45 miles an hour for like 2 years.
I mean, as we were leaving town, I pointed out kind of as we were driving by it, basically where I got in my hit and run or my rear ended a couple years ago. And admittedly, since like I was really only on the road about a month more after that, going to and from the Phoenix Symphony job before everything shut down. So it's not a place I drive by with any kind of regularity or have driven by with any kind of regularity for the last couple of years. So there was definitely a moment for me of like slight PSD and apprehension of like, oh, we're there. Okay, now we're past it and we're okay.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, also that's like a major accident spot.
Yeah,
because you get like two different mergers happening around the same area. with the way that our because our freeways and highways weren't built at the same time, it can kind of get a bit mazy.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was definitely, I very much appreciated having company for the drive, because the last time I did the drive, I did it by myself a number of years ago when I went out and visited some other friends and did like a Universal Studios Harry Potter Land trip kind of thing. But I was basically meeting everybody in LA for that one. So having like a company this time around meant I wasn't just listening to the Hamilton soundtrack 3 times on the on the way or whatever. And yeah, we definitely kind of kept the conversation rolling and visiting, especially at, like, we had the benefit of Logan and I had seen Spider-Man No Way Home a couple nights, or the night before or whatever, so like we were able to finally fully discuss that and kind of break that down and all that.
Yeah, sorry, there was an additional spoiler cast that all of you guys missed. Sorry.
Yeah.
We talked at one point, I know Frank and I talked at least at one point about like the idea of if we wanted to like bring out like a portable thing and just kind of record the podcast, and I was like, I'm kind of like fine just not putting any kind of pressure on that and just kind of like enjoying the time together, not on a microphone. We can just kind of like hang out and visit as people normally would, without kind of needing to be on topics or anything like that. Yeah, it was definitely a fun drive. Getting out of Phoenix was like a more of a slog than I was anticipating. But once we got actually out of the Phoenix metro area, it was we made a pretty good pace.
Zone, yeah.
And the fact that we went back an hour when we got into California helped like make up like some time basically on the drive. So yeah.
I just want to point out, it was really funny to see like how blasé Frank, Trevor, and I were about the landscape, and Logan was just like blown away by how beautiful it was.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's so beautiful, the colors and the mountains. Like, I'm like, every one of these mountains looks the same, dude. Like I've been on this drive so many times in my life.
I mean, I feel like Frank had some. Maybe it was before we picked you up, but I thought he had some moments, like, because Frank also mentioned of like, yeah, he definitely took it for granted when he was out here, like when he lived out here. But now that he's like back, just kind of visiting, he was very much kind of like enjoying it through the same eyes that Logan was. I think, right, Frank?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because it just looks so great out there. Like, but I definitely used to take it for granted, and I've done that drive before. But that's why it is definitely through like a different lens now, where I'm like, man, it's like incredible. It's so big and open, and then like the sun is just setting over those mountains. And I'm like,
it's so brown.
Beautiful
like
out here.
Entire drive,
it's so brown and beige.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
I mean, especially because we're driving out there at night, but then driving back, it was mostly day. Basically, like we were driving back during the day for things that were already dark and night kind of on the way out. So like on the way back, you guys saw all the windmills that we drove by on the way out there, but it was dark and we didn't and they're not lit up or anything like that. So yeah, it was just kind of like all that got missed on the drive there. So yeah, it's definitely like, it's like there were bits of like seeing the world through your guys' eyes as some and like removing the jaded lenses that I've come to have over the years of just living in Arizona, and everything is different shades of brown for a lot of it. But it was definitely a nice little road trip that we had out there. So then let's pivot over into we did our first day at Disneyland, then we did the second day at California Adventure. First day at Disneyland, any pre getting into the park thoughts, like going through security or anything like that, or do you want to just go straight into like we got into the park and then head straight to Star Wars Land?
I would say I'm really glad that I had the experience I had 10 years ago, which admittedly was like not a fun experience overall. To kind of like, one, being a broke college kid going to Disneyland and being a fully financed adult going to Disneyland are two very different things. But also like I was more aware of like, my condition, my physical condition, not necessarily also like taking into account like, I did not treat myself well during this pandemic. But also like, with my long-term disabilities in regards to, in regards to my arthritis and other issues, like I came much better prepared for it. And like, it's still like End of day one still like rocked me pretty hard.
Mhm.
Granted, I did not anticipate that we would remain in the park for the full 12 hours.
Oh yeah, no, you gotta expect that with me. There was definitely I've talked about this a little bit because this was my third trip in the last 6 months, basically since kind of opening up things back. And that first trip that I had, back at Labor Day of last year, or whatever, I definitely did not go prepared myself, and wore absolutely the wrong shoes, and so even that experience. I'm very glad that like the last couple times I've gone with like proper sneakers and been much more prepared for it. And this was even though we were there kind of all day, I feel like this was the easiest it had been on my feet. And maybe it was because like when I go there by myself, I'm doing things maybe a little bit more aimlessly of just kind of like going wherever I feel like in a given moment, or especially I with like a park hopper thing will kind of like be like, all right, I feel like doing something over at California Adventure, which is an extra long walk to go between the parks. So the fact that we were kind of like confined to Disney for one day and then confined to California Adventure the next, I think also helped to alleviate some of that potential burden. But
Also
yeah.
saved us $60.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, so we walked in, got there pretty much at open. Obviously, it took a little bit while to get through security and then get in the lines and stuff. But yeah, we basically beelined it straight to Star Wars Land because obviously I knew that was going to be a big thing for you three. So what was everybody's like first thoughts as we kind of like went into that little tunnel to come out in Batuu?
The first thing I noticed were the gas lamps of the Frontier Land had changed like to a really odd shaped lantern, and I was like, what the heck? And then as it dawned on me, it's like, oh, and then the music swells and you walk through, and it's honestly like you walk into a completely different place than you've ever been before. It is a full transformation, and it is one of the best Disney experiences I've ever had. Was just walking into Galaxy's Edge. It was just incredible. So
Galaxy's Edge was awesome.
Yeah, just like Frank and Cam have both said now, like it is just that sensation of walking in and the music swell and you can't see really anything in front of you because you're going through like this tunnel, and then it just like pop out into the light, and it's just you suddenly like are in Star Wars, right? Like it felt very much like what the kids and like the Chronicle of Narnia must have felt like when they went through a cupboard and suddenly are just in this brand new world and just like, where am I at, right? Like, and me and Frank kept talking so much throughout the hours in Galaxy Edge, just being like, we're in the whole, like I've never felt anything like this. It's like a whole other world, right? Like it is, they so nail the like authentic feel of what you would imagine a Star Wars planet and area to feel like, right? Like you are just so transported, right? And I think the rest of Disneyland and California Adventure are really great, and we're gonna have a lot of things that we're gonna gush about for there. But I think nowhere else captures just like you were in a whole other separate place, like as effectively as Galaxy's Edge did. Like the music, the location, like everyone wearing Star Wars costumes, right? Like the shops, the locations, the Millennium Falcon there, right? Like everything about it just felt so real that it is like so easy to get lost in that. And even when you're waiting in line, you're still like, oh, I'm waiting in line in Star Wars. Like I'm still in this world, even when you're in line, right? And like me and Frank geeking out about like the droids blinking and bopping, right? And like the machines, going off, and the plane they have working on kind of thing. Like
the engine that was being tested at the time, and they're like going through like
it was so great.
They're going through like testing routines for an engine.
Yeah.
And we kept seeing like whether like it was like, is it going to work this time? They're like, okay, no, go ahead and change this thing out with this thing. And it was so cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's so well done.
I think the only thing I could probably say might compare to it is not from our perspective, because like we're in the current modern day, but maybe back when Disneyland first opened, Frontierland I think might have had that same effect for people, because you walk through those wooden gates, and all of a sudden you are in a fully transformed place.
There's also, I mean, like, especially, again, not necessarily for us, but I remember, like, as a kid, first time I walked into Toontown.
Yeah, that's a good
and
example,
we
too.
admittedly did not really even go to Toontown or even really look at and see Toontown in our time there. But like it's another kind of thing. You kind of go under the train tracks, and kind of you pop up, and it's colorful, and there's like the big kind of like cartoony mountains and backdrops and stuff, a la Who Framed Roger Rabbit, kind of like that aesthetic, and you're just kind of like surrounded by that, which especially if you're like a 5-year-old kid or something like that, is like a magical feeling. Absolutely.
I think a great thing about that also is that like the proportions of the buildings are like they're from a cartoon.
Yeah.
Like the way that they're designed out and stuff. And it's just like, it's such a perfect encapsulation of that toon feel that, these Imagineers, when I got home, I watched the like behind the scenes stuff, the making of Star Wars Land. And I was just like, this also must have been how any of the people who've ever been in charge of building a unique land for Disneyland must have felt, is this excitement that you get to bring something to life in such a visceral way. And so like I can imagine the same thing for Toontown and all the Disneylands themselves, but it really is because there are other theme parks out there, right? Like, but there is something unique about the mission and the intent that the people for that, like Disneyland, that built it and continue to iterate upon it, have about their approach to building out this thing. It's not just like, oh, we got a cool roller coaster, let's go ahead and build something around it. It's everything needs to be tied into not just a central theme, but the spirit of what this is supposed to be going with. And I think as an adult, and as an older adult now in my early 30s, I look at that and I see why, like as a kid, I didn't care for Frontierland at all. I can see as an adult like why Frontierland is special and why it is that. And so when we got to experience Galaxy's Edge, we got to experience Star Wars, and possibly I think we've had like the quote unquote perfect day for a start, like as being in Galaxy's Edge. Started there in the morning, came back in the afternoon, and stayed there through the rest of the evening. And it was one of honestly, just one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life, much less Disneyland. And whether it was in, I guess we'll go through the day as it went by, but walking in and experiencing it was truly special and amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely something I've thought about a couple times, and I'm thinking about it now as we're talking about it. Like, one of the things that we didn't spend a ton of time on was like just seeing how cool they handle even like the shops. Like, I remember as we were like walking, we finished one of the rides and we're heading over to our Rise of the Resistance kind of thing. Like, we walked through basically like a whole bunch of stalls on the sides, and you guys, like, as we were walking, you guys were like, time out, this is really cool, but like we had a place we were heading, and I almost remiss not just taking you guys back to that after we were done or something, and just being like, all right, just enjoy, like, because one of those is basically like an entire shop dedicated to just like children, like in-world children's toys of like the wooden stormtrooper kind of things that like Rey has or is playing with in episode 7, or like those kinds of things are just there being sold, and we didn't really spend a ton of time really like enjoying that aspect of it, or we just we overlooked that that particular element. I think
that kind of stuff we overlooked. I really enjoyed the way that like Disney went to to Coke and said, hey, we need bottles that look like they belong in Star Wars. And so you just have like these little like bulbous bottles.
Basically, like I describe them as like thermal detonators, but with Coke or Sprite.
And it's great. I love that. And like all the writing is in
Arabesh,
and it does such a great job of that. But I think that
I'd never
really
seen the Dasani until Logan bought one of those like at dinner. I'd never seen like that design.
Cool.
I'd only ever seen like the little bulbous the little those things of Coke. So yeah, that was just another cool little element of it.
I think we need to talk about go ahead, Logan.
I was just gonna say, like as a final point on that, like one thing I will give a shout out in general is, this is both Galaxy's Edge and Disneyland and California Adventure at large, is when you walk in the gates, you feel like you are not in Anaheim, California anymore, right? And part is because of like the location and like where they do like mountains and buildings to block out the outside world, which is a very deliberate thing. And especially in Galaxy's Edge, they have very prominent mountains that are really beautiful to look at night, and also block out the rest of the park even. So even within that park, you're kind of secluded from everything else. But even in like the rest of Disneyland or California Adventure, you can't see outside of the parks. Like you're just in this other world. And so I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't applaud how well they just nail you kind of being transported to this other kind of place that exists, whether it's, you know, Two Town or Cars Land, which is also great, or like Pixar Pier that me and Frank flipped the fuck out at night, or Galaxy's Edge or anything, right? Like all of it is done in a way where like the minute you walk through those gates and into Disney, you like forget the ability to just like look behind you and see the buses. You're like in this other world now, and like this is where you are, and you get lost so quickly. And I think that is a thing that is done so effectively, right? And whether it's Disneyland or Disney World, which has a very similar effect, I think, from my time there, like the minute you cross those gates, you were just transported somewhere else, and it's done like so effortlessly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally with you there.
Oh yeah.
I'm totally with you there, and I know that's like a super special thing that I think they've definitely nailed, and like it is consistent throughout the entire park. And I think Galaxy's Edge has like the best though. Like when we went through that little tunnel, like I saw the white building with like the little pipe running across it, and that's when I was like, oh, it's Star Wars. And then the music is just there, and it's just such a special thing. And yeah, like walking through the marketplace, I think is also incredible. Wherever like all these people are just moving like all between all these stalls and going around like it's a real marketplace. And it's funny where it almost feels like Disney paid all these people to be actors walking around, like, but it's like all real people just trying to buy things. But like I think that's so incredible. And because what kind of going back to what we had talked about before with some of the other lands, like I think they're all supposed to feel that way and to varying degrees. But like for me, even when I was a kid and I went there, it just like didn't hit for like I think it does a lot of people, even though I think I acknowledge it's really cool, it's special, it's like a magic thing. But with Galaxy's Edge, it totally hits for me. And that's when I was like, oh, this is what it is like for other people to be in other parts of the park. Like when they walk in and it's like this super special feeling and you're just like looking all over the place, like taking it all in all the time. Like I had we had the mask on like pretty much all the time, but it's just so funny to me. Like my mouth was just open the whole time, just looking around at like all this stuff that's like all the super tall and goes all the way up. And it's just so incredible.
I think an element of that, especially like in other parts of the park, like I mean, we talked about like Frontierland and stuff. In other parts of the park, there's more of a blending of the lands. Like Frontierland kind of blends into New Orleans Square and Adventureland and stuff like that. And there's no like hard break like there was going into a tunnel and coming out in Galaxy's Edge. Like that, I think, is a deliberate choice they made with that particular kind of designscape. But there is also and I talked about this with you guys, like as we were going, I was like, we could go on Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, and then I was like, no, I don't want them to go on Big Thunder Mountain, because there is like, if you're on Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, when you get to the top of one of those hills, you can kind of see the Star Wars mountains, you know, and I didn't want that to be your guys' first exposure to Star Wars, so it was just like, no, we'll come back around and they'll be able to appreciate that when they see it, but let's let them see it in Star Wars land first, in the context that it's intended first.
And then we later did go on Big Thunder Mountain.
Yeah, and it was great.
It's like it was great,
rad.
So like circling back, obviously walking in, you know, great fun vibes. One of the things, and Cam, you may know this after having watched the kind of behind the scenes, but in talking about like just how immersed you are and they were in the design of it. I don't know if you guys ever saw or caught, but like kind of like baked into the concrete, the cement, you know, ground, there are a lot of like droid tracks, and they basically like even took like, you know, old R2D2 like, and basically like made an imprint of like the treads of R2D2, and so like you can kind of see like around the park where he's walked, or there'll be like little gonk droid kind of like footprints and stuff kind of like scattered around on the ground. So it's like, if you know, 99% of people aren't going to catch those details or anything like that, but like if you're standing there in line and you look down while you're waiting, you know, for Rise of the Resistance or something like that, and you see that, it's like that's just one more little element that like is just a fun little treat that maybe you can discover in there.
These are droid tracks.
Yeah. But yeah, so obviously first ride then we did was Smuggler's Run. Because I kind of navigated us over. You got to see obviously the Falcon there in its full glory. And
So
then
incredible.
We hopped in and yeah, you guys were already talking a little bit about just kind of like the show that Disney tries to build into the queue itself. So, they know you're going to be in there waiting for 20 minutes or whatever. So, they have kind of a routine of, you're hearing things over the intercom. In that case, workers at Hondo's kind of like locale, kind of like having a little banter or giving you a little backstory and lore and stuff. You have kind of like engine test flights and stuff that you can kind of just enjoy. But I want to talk about the ride itself, because I think, was it you, Frank, that you were like, you didn't know we were going to be driving the Falcon when we went on that ride, right?
Yeah, I had no idea because I didn't look at. I knew a little bit about the Galaxy's Edge, but I didn't know anything about like the rides. And I knew it makes so much sense that the Falcon is out there, like, but I just thought it was like a set piece thing. I didn't like when it's like, oh, it's Smuggler's Run. I'm like, okay, what? I don't know, whatever. And then when you get onto the Falcon, and then when you actually get to fly it, like that's such an incredible experience. Like that's the thing I think I've been talking about some of the most. Is just that, like, and when everyone's like, oh, how was Disneyland? I'm like, I got to fly the Falcon. Like,
yeah. So for those that don't know, Smuggler's Run is like a 6-person ride / video game, basically, where you're broken up into kind of 3 roles. There's your pilots, your gunners, and your engineers. I think the first time we did it, me and Cameron were the pilots, and you two were the gunners, and then I think we had like one other guy who was an engineer with us or whatever. And you get there, you sit down in the cockpit of the Falcon.
It's it's the greatest experience ever, honestly. There's so much about, like, we had fun times with. I think there's only one thing that triumphs the experience of flying the Falcon, because, like, just so I originally was like, I don't really want to do the left to right. I want to do the up and down. And you later told me that was the correct choice.
Yeah.
Because you fly, it's super fun. It's super easy. It's a little janky, but that's what you would expect from the Falcon. And so, like, you do it and it's like, okay. And it says, all right, like pilot, right side pilot, throw it into hyperspace. And Trevor just said, punch it, Chewie. And I regret that I didn't do it. I didn't do a Wookiee noise when I did it, but I was just so overwhelmed at the time. And I was like, and you throw it to hyperspace and you go and you just feel it going through hyperspace. And then it's like, okay, take us out. It's like, gotcha. It's the greatest thing in the world. And then, like, flying through that entire, like, obstacle course relay thing is just so good. And, like, needing to like be as smooth as possible to let the engineers line up correctly. Which, like, I appreciated. You guys kind of took a firmer handle on that when I was doing the engineer later. But it was like flying the Falcon is like the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah, so. Totally.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun one. What was it for you guys that were the gunners? Were you just having fun shooting stuff? Shooting TIE fighters?
I thought it was fun. I chose the auto control because I didn't even get what he was asking me at first. And I just hit auto, and I was just like, "Oh, okay." And you just hit fire basically, which was still fun. And there's other things you get to do, but it was really, I think that was super fun to just be along for the ride. Like, especially because where you are in, like, the middle of the cockpit, you have such a great view of, like, the entire, like, outside window. And even when you do the punch to hyperspace, it feels like the shot from the movie because it's like far back. And that's why I was like, wow, this is incredible. And then when you get to fire the missiles, it just gives you a big red button. And it's so funny when it's like gunner, fire missile. I'm like, what? And I look down, there's just a giant button. You just hit it. It's just and it's like, it's just a good time. And also the fall that kind of happens when you're there feels a lot more intense when you're, like, in the back and you just kind of don't have anything to grab onto.
Oh gosh, that is so, like, they do such an amazing job. It's like Star Tours on crack. It's so good.
It's Star Tours and like a Star Tours that, I mean, especially like for the pilots, you're in control of it. Like, you know, I was handling the left and right, and you were doing the up and down. And so, like when I'm turning left, the whole, like, cockpit thing we're in is turning left. And that's just like a cool, new layer to all of it. I think that's absolutely a fun thing. I when we went back and did it later in the day, I was the gunner that time, and I did do the manual. It was my first time doing the manual firing. It's basically like, instead of just the one button, you have basically like 3 buttons where you can basically aim high, aim middle, or aim low, depending on where the TIE fighters and stuff are in the shot. Other than that, it's largely the same kind of vibes. But when you guys got to pilot later, Logan and Frank, what was that experience like for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's for me, one thing that we even talked really about that I actually want to take it like a step back in, that Frank kind of alluded to, is like, I knew that we would be piloting the Millennium Falcon. I guess like going onto the ride, but like I hadn't really like thought, like once we were on like the queue, I didn't really think about it again. It's like, oh yeah, we're just doing this shit, and like I don't know what we're gonna actually, like I like had forgotten it. Like I don't know what we're gonna fly kind of thing. And so for me, it is almost a like Han Solo walking on board in Force Awakens moment, right? Of just like walking on, and suddenly we're like on the Falcon, and it's like, what just happened? Like the fact that like we're in the whole of the Falcon, and like there's the table, and like there's the benches, and like this is where Luke was like fighting the like droid with his lightsaber. Like you, like it's all there, right? Like that to me was almost as effective a like breathtaking moment as walking in the Galaxy's Edge to begin with, right? And the music's swelling there, like walking onto the Falcon, and like Frank said, like being on the Falcon, and like, you know, hearing our footsteps on the board is just such a insane visceral feeling, especially after like the four of us had just done 3 months worth of Star Wars podcasts right earlier this year, right? And like I
Last
talked
year.
before, again, the fact that like Star Wars is my favorite film series along with James Bond, right? Like this is something that I've been loving since I was 4 or 5 years old, so literally for a quarter century now. Like that to me was just as effective as walking into Galaxy's Edge. And then yeah, going into the cockpit and getting to watch Cameron punch it to light speed. Like Frank said, we basically were in the seating where the camera would be at in the films, and it was just as you'd want it to be. And then for me and Frank to pilot it ourselves and do those moments, right? And you say like punch it and go into like light speed and see it that close, like you've never seen it that close, like up front before, was just an insane feeling, right? And I really do think that throughout the entire Galaxy's Edge experience, me and Frank sort of felt like 2 giddy schoolboys who had somehow snuck into like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, and we were just kind of geeking out over every tiny moment. We just like couldn't contain our excitement. But like I liked the fact, I think that like we piloted the Falcon at the end of the night, and it was kind of like the cherry on top for like the last big thing we did, because that is such a great high to end the night on, is just like piloting the Falcon and then going and getting the lightsaber as like the, you know, dessert. It was a great 1-2 punch.
Yeah. One of the things, I don't know how like cognitive we were or you guys were of it at the time, but like when Cam and I were flying, it was like a daytime setting. And then when you guys were flying, I think it was basically like sun was setting. We were kind of like getting low, and like when we come back from that mission, we're coming back into Batuu at night kind of vibes. And,
Yeah.
And the way they kind of incorporate that to basically be like real time, you know, action is just another fun element of it.
Ooh, I do want to give a massive shout out to the animatronic Hondo, though. It was,
yeah,
we like, you don't really get, like, I don't know, like they haven't put it in a like brand new Disney ride in for like forever.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting to see like an animatronic like Pirates of the Caribbean's like level of animatronic of a person was just rad as hell. It was so cool to see, like, they're so good. Like it looks so good that you're like, it could be a dude and like prosthetic makeup.
It was very uncanny valley where like I couldn't quite peg it for like the first like 30 seconds I was watching. Like I think it's an animatronic, but like the way he's moving is just like so eerily human that I was like, I think it's an animatronic, but I'm not sure.
It's when he shifted his hips, it did that atypical animatronic like shift that I was like, that is 100% an animatronic. Okay. Also, a real person would not have like been doing animatronic like levels of like doing the same things over and over again.
Yeah,
sure.
It's definitely an evolution, and obviously, you guys saw this one first, but like the Rocket Raccoon in Guardians of the Galaxy, like that was like I remember seeing that, and that was like my first experience seeing that level of like animatronic, basically like walking you through or getting ready to walk you into like here's what this ride's gonna be about. In a really like cool and interesting way versus like you go on Space Mountain or whatever, it's basically like you're seeing like videos of what the thing's gonna be like or whatever. So having kind of that extra like there's a person telling me this, but they don't want to have to pay a person to be standing up there in a Hondo costume every day and do that, that many times a day or whatever. Like, yeah, it's a cool extra little vibe thing there. Plus, you get a cameo of Chewie there, lending us the Falcon, doing him some favors, getting some supplies for the Resistance. Do you guys want to bounce over to speaking of the Resistance, Rise of the Resistance?
Yeah.
Oh, hells yeah. Let's talk about that.
All right. So just because like this is the one ride I feel like is actually like full spoiler kind of thing, I will kind of throw in like a spoiler warning if you don't want to know what Rise of the Resistance is,
Sure.
Or what that ride's like. Maybe like I'll throw in a time code here to maybe come back for once we're done. But so yeah, like obviously again, so much of this for me was just getting to enjoy all of your guys' seeing this stuff for the first time, because obviously I got to experience it for the first time, my last couple trips and stuff. So what was that one like for you guys, Rise of the Resistance?
Amazing.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I almost think for me, Rise of the Resistance might have actually peaked before I even got on the actual ride itself.
Yeah.
Just like the reveal that like while on the same thing, you've suddenly shifted from like, a Resistance base to suddenly opening and like you're on essentially like the Death Star equivalent kind of thing.
Or
and,
like you're on a
stormtroopers, and
you are
like,
on a
everything is
real
there.
Star Destroyer. Yeah,
It
you feel like you're
so like again like just like the level of just like this is really disconcerting because I think I said it to Frank, but it might have been Trevor, was just like, I'm on a Star Wars set right now. And like, I like didn't know how to like, my brain sort of like broke for like 30 seconds while I was like walking, but like in a daze of like, this isn't not real. Like I just like stumbled into like a film scene. It was so well done. And such an awesome moment. And even just like standing there and following the stormtroopers and like the little like, guards it had, I like felt like I was like, I feel like I have to like listen to what they're saying because like I'm like in this world so effectively now. We're just like, yeah, like stand here, sure, great, got it, and like listen to their thing. And like Trevor's making snarky comments, right? And I'm just like, oh shit, like what's gonna happen? Like it was done so well that like when we actually got on the ride itself, I was like, oh right, we're on a ride right now. Like we're gonna do like we are all doing all this for a roller coaster, but like I had forgotten it because I was like, it was done so effectively, that transition from Resistance to like the Empire or Order.
I think it's one of the coolest elements of it is that it is like a multi-phased ride. Because like doing that, like basically the ride starts when you go into that like debriefing room and BB-8 is up there, and then like a hologram of Rey comes on to kind of give you the mission and Poe's there on camera kind of saying like, you're a fine looking set of recruits, because Poe is just oozes sex, of course. But then you like walk out
he does.
And there's Poe in the X-Wing and BB-8, there behind him. As you
I saluted them. I was so immersed. I was like,
and then,
so good.
And then we get on a transport, and that transport like takes us to, we're out there, and then we get sucked into the Star Destroyer kind of thing. But like that's all a part of the ride. It's just kind of like different staging areas of the ride, basically. But yeah, I remember going on that in particular the first time, and like you walk in, you go on this whole thing, and you're just kind of like immersed in, Nine Numb is there, piloting the thing with us and helping us get out there, and then like they're like stand clear of the doors or whatever, and you've walked in, so you expect that you're going to be walking through into like what was the mountainside or whatever. Just like mentally, you're like, oh, like of course I've walked in this way, I'm not going to walk back. But no, the doors that you walked in open behind you or whatever, and you don't realize that you've like made a full 180 to kind of like lead you into that next part of the ride of like a massive Star Destroyer with stormtroopers just there waiting to shoot anybody who gets out of line, that kind of stuff.
It felt so real.
Yeah.
Because my first thought was, how did they get how do they afford to put so many staff members here as stormtroopers?
Right. Yeah.
That was my first thought, was like that. And it was just, that must be like one of the funnest ones to work as a worker, because you just get to yell at people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard people say, is like, that's the fun one to do because they get to just exercise. They get to be mean in a Disney park, like in character. You like, even as Gaston or whatever, you can't be a jerk to kids. But there, as a first order, soldier, you could absolutely, like, I've definitely, like, you kind of alluded to it, Logan, but yeah, as we were walking in, I was like, Skywalker lives, like, under my breath, because I didn't have the confidence to know that the guy would play along with me if I said it like, while, if I said it like, but I've seen people, like, like the first order kind of cast members absolutely berate people for like stepping on the wrong color or whatever. Like, they say, you're going to be red. And then they say, so what color are you? And the guy was like, and they just immediately jump on him and kind of like, like, how hard is it? I just said red. You are red. Like, just like, Kylo's saber, you're red. Of course. Get it right.
I thought they kind of did that because people had like gone to the wrong section, and the person said, I gave you red, or I gave you white, not red. Like, so good.
Yeah.
Like, I also made a snarky comment, but mine was eat my farts, first order.
I did not hear that.
I didn't hear it either.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to also be quiet, because I didn't want to interrupt the immersion.
Exactly.
Yours was like, I felt yours was like very much like in Star Wars.
Yeah,
nobody in Star Wars says eat my
world.
farts.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nobody said in the Star Wars canon has ever said eat my farts.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's for Simpsons land.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that'd be awesome.
But yeah, then so obviously, we get to kind of the next part of the ride. We're being held for interrogation, and again, Kylo Ren and General Hux kind of standing there before us before they get called away or whatever.
So good.
And then Resistance members break us out in a cool little sequence. And then it was my first experience doing one of the trackless rides that they've started kind of doing these days, where it is you get into a cart and it has a path that it is set to follow, kind of thing, through the rest of that ride. There's no track on it. And therein lies why it probably breaks down so much. But yeah, that was a fun element. I think I was telling you, this was the first time I was in that cart. The other times I've been on it, I was in the other car, which takes like a slightly different path a couple times throughout the trip. But yeah, what was just that experience like for you guys as well?
Or we stared down an AT-AT. That was pretty cool.
That was awesome.
Oh yeah, so good.
I think when we hopped in the thing and we buckled up, and they're like, all right, you're like, give us our instructions, and it's like, you don't have to worry about it. And you realize, oh, they've colored their droids black to be able to fit in with the first order droids.
Is that like, I always thought they just kind of hacked the droids or something, but yeah, it's whatever that justification is.
I also thought they hacked.
Yeah, because they made it, like, it made it very clear to me, at least, because we were sitting up front. Like, this is an actual like resistance droid that they have snuck into the first order, and I just thought that was so cool. It's like the spies among us type thing. Nobody would ever expect a droid to be a spy. And then you're zooming through, and like you said, my favorite part, actually, well, one of my many favorite parts of Rise of the Resistance, but the first one that really blew me away is when you get into the AT-AT like hangar bay in the Star Destroyer, and you are going past them, and they are there. They are like, you are next to you're going between the legs of these massive things that you've only seen in film. And it's truly, and I looked up and I thought to myself, that's where Luke Skywalker cut through in Empire Strikes Back to throw a grenade in. And it's like, and then you finally, we get loaded into our elevator, and then we go up instead of down. And we, face to face with a crew in an AT-AT, and they are just like ready to fire on us. And all of a sudden we're we're being fired upon like that, and it's just the coolest thing.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
That was what I said. The other times I've done it, you basically go the other path. So when you go up, you're basically staring at the side of the AT-AT, and it's basically open, and somebody's basically out there with like a rail gun and shoots at you. And I was like, oh, this one's way cooler, where it's like the AT-AT actually firing at you as you're trying to escape. Yeah, that was just an extra cool. Like, oh, that's I was so excited to get to see like that path, just because it was new to me even as well. But yeah, like I mean, just all the details of that, of going through the path, like one of the first things, a probe droid kind of like comes down before you, and you go to try and to escape some lifts, and some stormtroopers catch you, and you have to kind of escape there into that AT-AT bay. And that's always the fun one, of like, that's where I'm really watching your guys' reaction, is like going in there the first time and just seeing the scale of what this thing is enthralling. But then you also have like Kylo Ren, chasing us down, sticking his lightsaber through.
When he does
through
the thing
top.
where he grabs those two cars,
Yeah, I love
and
that
he
part.
just starts like shaking his hands, and we're moving around like he's lifted us up and is doing that. And then the shuttle thing shuts on him, and it's like cuts him off from us, and so then we get out, and then we get into the elevator, we think we're safe, and then we hear a thump. And you're like, oh, that's cool. They put it like a little like prop lightsaber, and then it starts cutting away at it, and you're like, what? How is this happening?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it was so cool. Oh my gosh, it was so cool. I loved it so much.
And then we get thrown into an escape pod and jettisoned out of the ship. What was that? How was that feeling for you guys?
Awesome.
Yeah, no, it was incredible, because like it's such a it was unexpected for me, even though it makes sense, because even though like you're getting in the escape pod, and I'm just like, all right, and I'm like looking out the windows, and then you just fall.
Mm-hmm.
But it's such a, I've been thinking about that a lot, because I feel like it's such a, they nailed like what that would be like again, where it's like it just you free fall, and then the jets kick in, and you just go into like low orbit, and you slam into the ground, and I'm like, that's what it would be like. And like that's so cool to be like, oh, we were able to experience that, like, and I think it's the fall is definitely one that I've been thinking about, and I just think it's so fun.
Yeah, I didn't think about it at the time, but when you were trying to figure out like what Guardians of the Galaxy was going to be like, I was so glad that I had that as a reference point to be like, it's like that part of the ride, but just more of that.
See, even if you say that, I was not prepared for. We'll get to California Adventure.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, and then just kind of the being jettisoned, being spat out, and departing the ride, so that then like those things can go right back in and pick up the next crew of people and stuff. Yeah, such a good thing. And yeah, we were back on Batuu. Any final Rise of the Resistance thoughts before we move on to something else?
Yeah, because also I want to give a shout out to, even when you leave the ride, it's still like themed, like where it's themed like exactly where you crash landed, like kind of in the jungle. And then there's like the other ship that's like hanging off the thing with like the pilots like in it. And it's like, I think that's like so cool how it, from beginning to end, it's basically just like full in character. Like it never breaks until even after you get out of the ride.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I know that this is like, this Rise of the Resistance is clearly, between Rise of the Resistance and Guardians of the Galaxy, I seriously understand like where the future of rides and how that's going to be going forward. And I just can't wait I honestly can't wait for the next set of rides and projects that they do, like wherever they end up doing them, because what they're like, the template that they're working off now, the kind of like set goals and ideas that they have now about the like how to even more fully immerse people, whether you're in the queue and you're waiting versus like when you're actually in the ride, and then when you're leaving, because it really does such a great job of making you feel like you are on the ride before you even like quote unquote get on the ride.
Mm-hmm.
Like we felt we were in the ride a good 10-15 minutes before we even like actually got on the actual cart that was the ride. Like it's such a new type of experience, and I really, really enjoyed like that entire experience, and I can't wait to see them do more going forward.
Yeah.
So
last thing I'll chime in on it is just like, obviously this is one where we took advantage of it and paid the extra to get kind of the lightning lane fast pass for that one. But I think we all kind of were like, well worth it, rather than waiting
Totally.
like 2 hours in the line to experience it.
Well, you just hear those horror stories of people who are like, we were in the line for 2 hours and then we get there and it's like, oh, it's broken. Come back later.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like-
absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. I will go ahead and mark the time code here. So yeah, let's did we do anything else in Star Wars Land at that point, or did we start
'cause
heading
we had
over to other things?
Because we were on a lightning lane schedule for most of the day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that
for
meant
Disneyland in
that
particular.
Indiana.
Yeah.
We went to Indiana Jones. I've ridden that ride dozens of times. I really want to hear from Logan's perspective as both an indie fanboy, but as well as just like being, because this is the ride that we have that they don't have over there, right? In Disney World.
I don't remember riding Indiana Jones as a kid. It could have just been because my sister would have been scared to do it. But it's interesting because I think the thing I've said the most about the Indiana Jones ride, as someone who, as Cameron said, is such a huge fan of Indiana Jones as a character in a series, I was surprised at how much it is just a straight horror ride. That is like arguably like the scariest ride in Disneyland that we rode on. Like maybe Space Mountain if you're like afraid of the dark, but like it is just like, to me, Space Mountain is like you're on a roller coaster in the dark, but there aren't really any like jump scary moments. Whereas like Indiana Jones has like jump scary moments, and there's a giant snake and like flashing lights, and like you're constantly like veering off and like bumping around shit, and like I was blown away at how much that really leaned into kind of the more horror elements of the series and loved it, right? Like I love the fact that after doing, Rise of Resistance and Smuggler's Run, we went back to like a classic roller coaster kind of ride that I personally think still holds up so well and is so cool and does have like that sort of jankiness that you want from a ride where you kind of get, I think the phrase they use is like it beats you up a little bit kind of thing. And Indiana Jones I thought was great. I thought the final like drop from the boulder was awesome. Like that is one of the rides we did at the park that we only did once that I would have loved to have done a second time and picked up even more of the like, oh, there's that from that, and there's that from that, and there's that from that moments on the thing, right? And like, because in the experience, I didn't know what to expect, and I was just like in the moment, and we're going so quickly on that ride too. Like, it is such a cool, I think, fan servicey thing, and a little bit like with Galaxy's Edge and Star Wars, I thought the Indiana Jones ride, from right when you first enter into like the queue, does a really good job of being like, this is going to be a straight up horror experience. So hope you're ready for that. You're going to go down like a really dark, damp cave. It's going to be dingy. It's going to be kind of like dirty and grimy.
There's one thing in there. Obviously, like these days, you probably go through it too quick to ever really catch it. But like, there's one point in there where there's like spikes above you in like one of the chambers basically on the path down. Yeah. And there's like bamboo that's like in world it's like, oh, it's holding it up, but there's one that's like very like you can play with it and you can shake it. And you can like, I don't remember, like I don't know how it triggers or what it is, but like you can pull it and like you will hear a loud like clunking kind of thing, and the spikes will like come down a little bit through the ceiling to really like play into that. Like I remember being so freaked out by that as a kid, like one of the first times I went on that ride.
The thing I noticed was in one of the other parts of like the cave is they have the things you can step on that would set up the spikes in like Raiders of the Lost Ark and the opening like dungeon as well, which I thought was such a cool like touch as well. Yeah,
or they have like diamonds on the floor, and if you look up, it's basically like a pillar will come and land on you.
I didn't even think to look up. I was just so fixated on the stuff on the
so that's basically what the story of that chamber is. If you step on one of those things, a pillar will crush you. And so like if you look up, there's a whole bunch of like shivs basically like keeping the pillars in place so they won't come down. And they're really cool. And you can kind of see like some that are like, deeper in than others. That's always an absolutely fun one. I looked it up. There is not a ride in Disney World, but there is an Indiana Jones stunt spectacular in Disney World that probably has a lot of the same kind of like iconic moments and stuff.
Sure.
Any other indie thoughts there before we move on? We let Logan drive. Logan was the driver for those that have been on the ride. So that was
rad.
That was fun. We gave him crap when he turned the lights off.
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, when I did that, like the lights go off, and I was like, Logan, why'd you turn the lights off? Logan, turn the lights on. Logan, turn the lights on.
Got freaked out. Yeah, I think Indiana Jones is one that we didn't spend too much time talking about, but like is in my like top 5 for Disneyland. I'm just like, and like part of that is because I am such a huge fan of that series, but like. It was such a cool experience, I think, and a really fun ride as well. Like that is probably at this point 30 years old. There's nothing from Last
don't make me
Crusade
feel
so
that old.
It's all like Temple of Doom and Raider stuff. So like I imagine it was probably built before like Last Crusade, so it's gotta be a 30-year-old ride.
It was post Last Crusade.
Yeah,
there's nothing in it then that's Raiders from Last Crusade. So
right.
Well, it really pulled from the first 2 films.
Temple of Doom in particular, like that ride has a lot of Temple of Doom vibes to it.
And
it's kind of like I like to look at it as like the far less racist version of Temple of Doom,
which we love.
Yeah,
which we love.
There was because like doing Lightning Lane stuff, you don't wait in line as much for these things, but like there is a whole like News Across America film reel that plays that is like Sala and like Indiana Jones like discovering the temple and people coming out with like
a very small bit of that bridge like went past it.
Because the whole story of that ride is like, don't look into the eyes of the statue and you'll come out with riches or with like the fountain of youth, or you be able to see the future or something like that. And so it's just fun little vibes like that.
But Logan had to look at the statue.
I mean, I always do because I always want to take you down with me, all of you. Ride opened in March of 1995.
Yep.
So
I remember it being brand new.
It's not quite 30 years old, but it is closer to 30 years old than I was hoping it was. I was 10 years old when that ride came out.
When I first went to Disneyland, I was 3, and that ride I know was not there because when we went back after, like, when I was like 7 or 8, it was still pretty brand new, and it immediately became my older brother and my middle sister's favorite ride.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great ride.
They wanted to go on it multiple times. They did go on it multiple times while like basically my mom took my little sister and I to Toontown, and we did Toontown things because Toontown's awesome. Mm-hmm. Although I was disappointed as an adult. Like my mom never let me go on any of the cool fun rides in Toontown.
There's like one. There's like a Roger Rabbit ride in Toontown that's like the fun one. Everything else is like walkthrough experiences, or maybe there's like a goofy roller Gadgets Go coaster.
That came out much later after that. But what was it?
We'll get to the goofy roller coaster.
Hell yeah, we will.
Oh god, fuck that
part 2. Yeah.
We'll talk about it later. That's day 2. I was gonna say, that's right, because Mr. Toad's Wild Ride is in Fantasyland.
Yeah,
that ride rules. I will always stand by Mr. Toad's.
When we were leaving, I felt really bad that we didn't get to take Logan on that because that is a actual fun, it's a fun little ride in Fantasyland that is also just also because Mr. Toad's Wild Ride is in itself a wild ride of a story.
Yeah,
that's the thing. It is just at its core, it's just a fun, chill ride, and the story is insane.
The story is basically like
believe it has
you
gone
immediately
untouched.
Die and go to hell.
Exactly,
and then you're just trying to escape hell.
And then they have the heat turned on,
exactly,
like they're shooting flames at you, and it's hot in there, like you're actually in hell. It's insane. You get hit by a train.
Yeah. The pro strat has always been like go on Splash Mountain and then go dry yourself off and warm up by going on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. But obviously Splash Mountain was closed while we were there. I think after Indiana Jones probably when we grabbed lunch, right?
Yep.
And then so we grabbed some lunch and then we headed over to Tomorrowland.
We did New Orleans. I got fish and chips and you guys got chicken tendies.
Yep.
Yeah. The food is fine. Yeah.
Yep. It was admittedly the weakest of the food that we had over the couple days.
Definitely.
We don't need to talk about the food that much. It was fine. Yeah.
Yeah, stage door cafe for any Disney aficionados. But yeah, then Space Mountain. Apart from getting a little motion sickness, what do people think of Space Mountain?
I next time I go on Space Mountain, I gotta lose some weight because it was a bit of a trial to get myself fitted in there nice and snug for the bar. It was the first of the rides where it's like, oh, these bars will be, because it's not the bar that goes across everybody. It's the bar that goes like the little squares that you have to fit yourself through, and it was built in a day and age of when people had smaller frames, and it was a whole thing. But I got mine at least on the left side all the way down. Was a little worried about the right side because of how fast you go, but it was fine. Tweaked my ankle a little bit, but we're good. It turns out I did not have the worst experience on it because that goes to Frank.
Yeah.
Also, I love Space Mountain. Space Mountain's like so fucking great. It's so great.
Before we dive into any Frank stories on that, Logan, what were your thoughts on Space Mountain? Because
yeah, it's great.
Like obviously there is a Space Mountain at Disney World. I don't know if you'd been on that one or
I had never been on it.
Okay,
so I had never been on Space Mountain at all.
What were your thoughts of this Space Mountain? Just roller coaster in the dark.
Yeah, it's sort of that, but like it's a ton of fun. I think when we got off it, I was really hype on it because it's a roller coaster in the dark. It's great. It's a ton of fun. And because like it's not like I had always envisioned it as like a really terrifying ride, right? And then I think maybe doing Indiana Jones before that was like, oh, this is definitely the scarier ride to me than Space Mountain, which is just like you're just in the dark, really. There's no like jump scare kind of moment. So, and it wasn't as dark as I'd kind of envisioned it might be. Space Mountain is great. It unfortunately, I think, fell a little bit further on my ranking just because some of the other rides we do later on were really, really great, I thought. But Space Mountain's a ton of fun. I mean, it's a classic. I'm very happy to have crossed off a list. If what ended up happening afterwards didn't happen, it would have been one that I'd have been down to do a second time. But tragedy befell us.
Yeah. But I mean, Frank recovered pretty quickly. How you doing, Frank?
I'm fine. Yeah, like no, because that's what this doing Space Mountain this time it made me really motion sick, and that didn't happen last time we did it.
Exactly, I'd done Space Mountain with you before, and you were fine the last time we did it. So yeah, maybe it was just doing it right after having eaten. Maybe it wasn't the best call.
I think it might have been that, especially because like I don't typically like random thing about me, but I don't typically eat during the day. I usually just eat like at night. So then that was probably a thing too, just like eating and then going on a like intense roller coaster like Space Mountain. But the part I wanted to give a shout out to too though is like when they like something was wrong with our cart, so they like pulled us off to the side and we got to get out and get in another cart, but we got to walk through like the weird crew members only server room that like powers the ride, and I thought that was an awesome. Like I love the behind the scenes stuff, especially because like you're not really meant to ever be in there. The sign definitely says like crew members only.
Yeah.
But like I thought that was super awesome.
Yeah, I was telling my family about that today. I was like I've been on that ride plenty of times, and so like when we turned left instead of going right to go on the ride, I was like, this is new. What's about to happen? I have no idea. And then it was like, okay, yeah, sorry, we need to like basically probably decommission this cart. So they kind of walk through with like a step stool basically to get everybody kind of set of stairs off the thing. It's interesting, like, because I definitely looked at that at the server room as more like as a showpiece, because I don't think that was like the actual like electrical equipment working the ride or anything like that. I just
that had actual like in those cages it had actual like server equipment. I don't think it powers the ride. I think because the ride's older than that, like much older than that server
technology
equipment
would actually.
Definitely,
yeah. I think that was just like that's like a server room at Disneyland. Because like for people who don't know, like everything on Disneyland now is especially run off of like a lot of wireless devices and things like that. So they would have to have like a data center for all of that. And I don't think instead of having like one massive data center, I would imagine they have just like a bunch of small ones like located all around the park.
Yeah. I mean, especially, because that was how the whole like the original kind of incarnations of the Fast Pass were built around like, oh, each like ride had kind of their own unique servers that some people figured out how to game the systems by like basically pinging all the servers and getting fast passes for everything. yeah, I just kind of maybe was like just so like, oh, this is such a weird thing, and I was just so ready to just get back on the ride that I just wasn't paying
I
as
didn't
much
notice it at
attention
all
to,
either,
to
yeah.
you guys to what you guys were seeing on there. But yeah, I mean that was definitely a cool vibe. Also, shout out to the picture we got of that one where
Mhm.
Cam's mask came up
Iconic,
and
yeah.
covered his eyes.
Because
Yeah.
I think they do that right after you do one of the loops on it, and so like my mask did just like over the course of the ride just like kept sliding up, and I was kept pulling it down, and eventually I just gave up because I'm like, I'm in the dark anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not seeing anything, I'm not gonna miss anything that I could see, but sure enough, like
Yeah,
So good.
just a
so
lovely little picture
it's
there.
just it's so funny because it's still like over my mouth, it just is like now stretched over my face rather than my beard and chin.
Yeah.
So you just see like beard and then mask and then hair and that's it. And it's like it's a great photo. It's one of the better ones.
Yeah.
I do want to give a shout out to Tomorrowland for being one of the areas of Disneyland, maybe the area of Disneyland outside of Galaxy's Edge that I most enjoyed, just like the aesthetic and vibe of, because it like the music and like the look of it all, like it felt very much like, again, like, oh, this is like a distinct thing, and this is going to become a theme for day 2 in California Adventure. That is what I really liked about those certain areas. Just like this is its own certain thing that doesn't necessarily bleed with the other ones as much. It is just like, this is Tomorrowland. It's got its own kind of retro, like futuristic, like 50s, 60s vibe that I really liked about it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has that cool like vision of the future, but from the past.
Yeah.
And like, and that's
Retrofuturistic,
definitely
yeah.
like,
Yeah, it's
and that's a
rad.
really cool aesthetic. Also, shout out to Pizza Planet. Like we
Yeah.
didn't go there, and I have never eaten there, but it's cool that it exists.
It is.
Like as a
It
Toy
is.
Story fan, I love that it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As somebody who had gone to the Pizza Planet before to eat, it's glorified cafeteria food.
Cafeteria food's great.
again,
I'll take it.
I would argue like the pizza's not, top of the line pizza, but the pasta's pretty good.
I think that's the secret to that place is go for the pasta.
Yeah.
Because when I went to like a decade ago, I got a burger and other people got a pizza, and both of those were not great. So I think the pasta is the key to go with. Like that's the quote unquote adult dish that you want to get at Pizza Planet, probably.
Yeah.
So.
We did Star Tours.
Yeah.
Kind of rounding out our the trio of Star Wars rides there at Disney. The original Star Wars ride over there in Tomorrowland that now feels like completely like apart from the rest of Galaxy's Edge. But yeah, what'd you guys think of that one?
I think it is unfortunate that Soarin' exists. It's a very similar like aesthetic and vibe. Like, and Soarin' has the advantages of being like made afterwards. So, like it can take what worked with Star Tours and do it better. Like Star Tours is this weird, almost like out of place ride where like you said, it doesn't fit with Galaxy's Edge and that aesthetic at all. And then Soarin' is sort of what it is, but better. And so it's like this weird, like redheaded stepchild. It is really cool because it is essentially set pre the sequel trilogy kind of era. And so it's rad that you kind of get the more like classic look and feel of Star Wars. And I enjoyed that aspect of like seeing like, R2 and C-3PO there is always a treat.
I will say like it's interesting because we only rode it once. And we went to Kashyyyk and we went to the Return of the Jedi second Death Star. And I'm pretty sure that one was because like it features Boba Fett, and they were probably like, hey, Book of Boba Fett is on Disney Plus, because they typically they definitely have a history of like locking in one of those segments to kind of promote or tie into whatever the big, like I remember seeing it going around Last Jedi, and it was always like Crate. You always basically like went to Crate at one point. It would have been interesting to go on that with you guys like again to see if like we'd gotten different things, because I think a lot of the cool aspect of that ride is the randomness of like what you're gonna get. They talk about it as like the slot machine approach to ride design, in that there are 4 distinct segments, and like it's has the potential to be randomized each time. So you're gonna get like and for me it was very much like, oh, this is the first time I've been in a, a non or I guess it was the first time I'd been in like either of those settings in a long time. Like I've done recently when I've done it, I've done like I've gone to Naboo or Hoth or something. But yeah, this was the first time I'd done Kashyyyk in a while, or it'd be a lot of like new trilogy stuff, of like flying over Jakku or something like that. So it was cool to like go back to kind of those other eras that I feel like I hadn't seen recently. But it's also like it has a near and dear place to my heart because it's just one of my like lifelong favorite rides there at Disney.
Sure.
Same.
And more so just now that they are regularly kind of like changing it up. Like it wouldn't surprise me if at some point they have like a Mandalorian sequence that they throw in there, and you're out there like saving Baby Yoda or something like that, or Baby Yoda ends up being the hologram or whatever. But yeah, doing it only the one
Dude,
time
what if Baby
like,
Yoda? What if they replace C-3PO and R2-D2 with Baby Yoda?
I mean,
you
like,
can't understand anything it's saying.
yeah, there you go. But yeah, so that was a fun one. What do we do after that? I guess like a couple of us did Astro Blasters. While Frank kind of relaxed a little bit and let himself settle down. That was a fun one. Like Astro Blasters.
I like the Toy Story one more. When we get to that,
Yeah.
the Toy Story one was rad.
Yeah. I think because Astro Blasters is so much earlier than the Toy Story one. So
I think we probably did the Web Slinger before we did Toy Story, didn't we? Because it was like
right before I think
it's
we did, like back to back.
Like that's the evolution of that concept is Astro Blasters, then Midway Mania, and then where they're at with Web Slingers now is like here's a shooting gallery that's also a ride. So yeah, and I think we probably like to further relax a little bit. I think that's when we probably did our loops. We did the monorail, and then we did a loop around the park on the railroad.
Yep. I thought that was actually awesome. Like both of the times I had been before, I had never been on either of those, and I thought that was so cool that like the monorail just kind of like takes you around, or the railroad just kind of takes you around the park in like a chill way. But it also has these like weird scenes intercut, like the Grand Canyon and like dinosaurs and like
dinosaurs.
I'll never
forget. It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
It's cool, but it's like I've never heard anyone ever talk about these things ever, and I don't know if a lot of people even know they're there. But I thought it was like surprisingly just really weird and really cool. And then the monorail just like takes you in back scenes, and like you get to see like backlots and like weird things, like, and I'm so surprised because they do so much to keep up the magic that then they just have a thing that takes you in through the backlots, and even though it's not like
there's a dumpster
universal
right there.
backlot tour,
like, okay,
it's like here's the dude without the Mickey head, he's smoking back there just having a good time.
I think my favorite part about that is you get to see like the like intense sewage system, like the centralized sewage system that is all in pink to separate it from everything else for what I assume is safety purposes. But it was like that was intense because I was like, that's a whole lot of sewage. I'm like, Disneyland is a massive park with literally tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
It's a mini city. There's a lot of poop that goes through that place.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of poop that goes through it. So they need and I'm like, this is probably just for Disneyland. California Adventure probably has their own on their own side of things.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it was really cool.
The answer is they dump it into the Pixar Pier.
While we were there, it was cool seeing because the Finding Nemo submarine ride was basically out of commission, and that whole like thing was drained, just like Splash Mountain was drained, which was a weird thing that I had never seen before. But yeah, being on the monorail, you drive over that a couple times throughout the course of that. So like we got to basically see down there, see like the fact that there's no water in there, and there's like scaffolding and people working on redoing and updating that ride, and probably doing like paint touch-ups and stuff like that. And so yeah, it's always fascinating seeing like the things that you just don't normally see. I mentioned in addition to the kind of the weird like Grand Canyon and then going back in time thing that is there between Tomorrowland and the Main Street station, in between New Orleans Square and the Toontown station, you drive through the Splash Mountain ride, and normally you drive through and you see people kind of in the log flumes. You see like a little steamboat thing where they're singing Zippity Doo Dah, and you in the train kind of like see that through a pane of glass or whatever. And because Splash Mountain was down and just off, they had that all covered up, and you would never have known that that's a thing on that ride. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting another surprise kind of thing that I'd never experienced, or at least I don't remember experiencing before. And I think you guys hung around for one more stop while Logan and I went to the Matterhorn, because Logan wanted to see that. Because Logan, that was to your point earlier, Logan, of like being so immersed in the park, you could still pretty much always see the Matterhorn from somewhere in the park, and you were always like, "What's that? Is that that's the Matterhorn? Okay, that's the Matterhorn."
It's so bizarre because like at Magic Kingdom and Disney World, it is basically Cinderella's castle. You can pretty much always orient yourself like where you're, because you can see that castle pretty much anywhere in Magic Kingdom at Disney World. And in Disneyland, you cannot see Rapunzel's castle wherever you are.
Sleeping Beauties.
Sleeping Beauty. I'll get it right one of these days. You can't see her castle. Like, it's just significantly smaller, right? Like Trevor did
it's like 70 70 feet is Cinderella's castle
versus like 180, right? Yeah. So it's significantly smaller, right? And so for me, the landmark to kind of orient myself around was always, oh, there's a Matterhorn kind of thing. Like, it's very easy to see. It's like centrally located, kind of like you could always spot it. And so I was like, yeah, let's go on that ride. And that was the first big ride where it was like, oh, this is a ride that exists to just beat the shit out of you when you're on it. Like, it is going to throw you around.
Yeah, it was like, this is the oldest thing we've been on here at the park.
Yeah, it is a ride that is going to beat you up. And like, there's maybe one ride in California Adventure that me, Trevor, and Frank all know very well that maybe beats you up as much, if not maybe a little bit more, but like Matterhorn beats you up. And like, that was my biggest take of like, the ride itself, it's fine, it's fun, great views. It was just more of just like, man, this is chucking you around on your seat. Like, you were getting beaten up here. It was cool to see the Yeti that they had on the Matterhorn, right? And like that kind of old school, I can't even imagine how old that's got to be at this point. And then like the shot of like Galaxy's Edge in the distance. But for me, my biggest take of Matterhorn is always going to be that ride beats you up on it.
Yeah,
dude, that was my thing, because since it was your first time, I was like, oh yeah, it's 100% worth going on, but I'm gonna sit it out for this one just because like I did it last time, it was fun, but it beats the hell out of you. It just whips you from side to side.
Yeah,
and like for me being super tall, I hang like halfway out of the cart, and I'm just like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah. Then we met back up over basically down at the end of Main Street. And is that when we went and did Big Thunder Mountain? Oh, like Logan and I also, like, we came out the world's smallest Disney parade, one float 100%. Of Anna and Elsa doing Frozen, so and just like playing Let It Go. And I was like, that's a weird, because it wasn't on the schedule or anything. It was just like doing the parade route of like from It's a Small World out to the front of the park.
You have to understand how weird it was for me and Frank at that moment, because we were sitting down, like, and all like we didn't know we were sitting next to a speaker, and then all of a sudden, Let It Go starts blaring out, and we're like, "This is weird. That's weird." And I'm like, I looked at the schedule. There's nothing on the schedule for it. Like, but then we see just like the singular float come down from the castle and around Main Street, and it's just like this most surreal, like,
what is going on?
The 3 p.m. Let It Go show is happening, I guess, and it's like comes around, and it's like, granted, like it's fun, like it's fun. All the kids got super excited, and they were all like, "Oh yeah!"
I will say, they're crowd pleasers.
Yeah. I will take a moment here to say, thank you to all those children, for the most part, who were super well behaved, and we're just excited to be in Disneyland, and because that excitement was just like very, like their exuberance was just very, I won't say corrosive, but it's very infectious. Yeah, it's just, it was super infectious. Just like, because if you ever felt like just even a teensy bit cynical, you could just like look over and see a kid dressed as their favorite Disney character, like just like in awe of being in Disneyland and just so excited. And it's a truly wonderful, special thing, because it brought, like, those moments bring back memories of back when I was a kid, and going to Disneyland. And it's so much fun as an adult now to have the memories, kind of like the deja vu and the memories and all that effect of things as an older person, and then also just like see just these kids build these memories in this really special place.
And we get to kind of like rebuild our own, as we talked about, like going into Galaxy's Edge. That's like that's just for us. We get to have that experience again as adults now, in this really cool way, that those kids have when they walk through the castle and are in Fantasyland and stuff like that. It's really cool.
I got a little of that because this is the first time I've gone to California Adventure after they built out Pixar Pier. And that was an awesome moment, just getting to kind of like enjoy a kind of carnival, Toy Story-esque little area of Disneyland.
Don't you worry. Me and Frank will get to Pixar Pier. We'll get to
We'll dive into that. I was curious, since I don't think we ever really talked about, like, did you guys do anything in particular while we were on the Matterhorn?
We rode the train, my dude. We rode the train.
You just went through the Grand Canyon and back into the land of dinosaurs again, and then
we did it a second time.
Okay. Cool.
I think because we definitely stopped in like a shop at some point, and then we just ended up on Main Street again. We kind of just did the Main Street like tour.
We just walked Main Street, which was cool because like we didn't do that on our way in. Because a lot of those shops are still kind of like getting themselves up and running when Disneyland opens.
It's also like,
so like
when you're there in the first thing in the park, you don't need to do the shopping. You want to get to the rides that are gonna before they fill up. So that was like, we want to get to the Galaxy's Edge. Yeah,
I want to get something to drink, and so like I went in and maybe it's like a snack or something, and so we went into the Coca-Cola sponsored refreshment area, and there was a line there, and I was like, oh, but I can do the mobile order thing, and it's like mobile order is available for like your mobile order will be available in 30 minutes, and it's like, no, thank you. And then Frank spotted a cart out there, and I was like, that looks like a plan, and we went there. I saw the price on some of the snacks, and I said no. And instead just got some water, and we just chilled at like on a park bench, just kind of like just continue to chill. Like Frank and I had like a good, like you guys would do the Matterhorn, which like I think at that time was I just tired, or I forgot why I was just like not up for it.
I mean, yeah, your feet might have been like,
my feet. That's right, my feet were killing me.
Also, I don't think you wanted to be in the Matterhorn because you knew that it was going to just beat you.
Yeah, you basically said say hi to the Yeti for me, and you.
Oh, that's right, I did say that. Yeah. Frank and I were both just like, we are not in like the capacity to handle the Matterhorn right now. Not that it's an intense ride, but it does just kind of like
it beats you up. It's like in that way it is. And then we did Big Thunder Mountain.
I remember. I thought I was going to be too big to get in the bobsled. I remember now.
There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, Big Thunder Mountain. Next thing we did.
One of my favorites.
That's like I always enjoy that ride just because I love roller coasters, and that is one of the like that and Space Mountain are like the most. This is a roller coaster thing for me, and I guess the Matterhorn too. But yeah, the Matterhorn is a roller coaster that will try and fuck you up, kind of thing. Whereas this one's like cool and has like a good flow to it. Yeah, what were people's thoughts on that one?
I think that Big Thunder Mountain is maybe my favorite ride that we did in the entire 2-day stretch. I really, really loved it. Like the experience of like Rise of Resistance and Smuggler's Run is better, right? But like in terms of just like pure, this is a roller coaster, this is a ride, like you were kind of saying, Trevor, like Big Thunder Mountain is lit. It's so much fun. Like if I could have done one thing differently, it would have just been going back, we're doing it again kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like Big Thunder Mountain is great. And like as someone who, grew up in Missouri where like our theme park, like Silver Dollar City, is very like 1800s kind of like rustic set park vibe to it. Big Thunder Mountain very much like, oh, this is a roller coaster from there, right? Because there they have like they very much like themed shops and like that kind of stuff and like seasonal things, but it is like these are roller coasters. They're not like experience rides really. And that would have fit right alongside like Wildfire or Powder Keg or like my favorite ride from there, like Thunderation, right? Like it very much had that same vibe of like Thunderation with like the corkscrew and like diving your head down as you go through this thing. And so I think there's an element of that like being very similar to my like favorite roller coaster from Missouri, and then being a kind of like faux wooden roller coaster like that. I loved Big Thunder Mountain. I could literally rave about that for like 5 minutes.
Logan
awesome.
ended up doing Lisa Abbott, my mom's two favorite roller coasters back to back, Matterhorn and Big Thunder Mountain. I have to say,
one's
like,
great.
Yeah,
One's
Big
great.
Thunder
Yeah.
Mountain is
Yeah.
like it fucks. I love that.
Yeah,
roller
it's
coaster
so
much.
good. I wish we could have done it a second time. It's so
Yeah.
much fun. It's such a great, just like roller coaster.
It's
That-
so great. My favorite thing about it is you technically never really get like up, like, because as a kid I have acrophobia. I have clinical acrophobia. I am afraid of heights. Like by definition, I have a deep seated like not due to trauma elsewhere. Since the time I was born, I have been afraid of heights, and so I hated roller coasters because when you do the thing and you go up, you are up suspended in the air, and there's nothing on your sides to protect you, and then you just drop, and it's terrifying, and I hate it. I'm
So
I'm
fun.
better
I
about
love
it
it.
now.
I love roller
yeah.
coasters.
I
Yeah.
love it.
I
Next
hate
time,
that.
Magic Mountain.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So we did that, and then but the best part about Matterhorn and Big Thunder Mountain is like you get that kind of like roller coaster-esque experience, but it's more Matterhorn's more enclosed because you're going through the mountains.
Mhm.
But Big Thunder Mountain.
Yeah, Big Thunder Mountain.
Big Thunder Mountain is just because the ride takes you into a canyon, you feel like that encompassing area around you, but you still get to have like some real roller coaster moments. There is a typical chugga 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 moment where you do that like slow incline going up moment there, but even then you don't because you look off to the side and you're not that far off the base ground.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's
yeah,
that moment isn't like followed by like a big drop. It's followed by speed, but you're not
yeah.
doing like a straight
That
down. You're doing
corkscrew, like the
you're doing
sideways,
exactly.
oh,
You're doing that kind of stuff.
the
Amazing.
corkscrew. I love corkscrewing on a roller coaster.
I do
It's
too.
the
Yeah,
best.
it's one of my favorite things.
I prefer that over like if you have one that had like a big corkscrew, like Big Thunder Mountain does. I prefer that over like a big
Drop.
up and drop. Just because like I like the speed, like talking about being afraid of going too fast when we were on our way out there. Just that one alone, like I love the speed of Big Thunder Mountain.
So
They retrofitted it to just kind of like, just get it like put new parts in it and stuff. Like a decade ago they did that. And so like it runs better than it's ever running. And man, I think it's just one of the best roller coasters ever made. It's one of the best
It's so
parts
good.
of Disneyland, and I think it's like it's the crown jewel of Frontierland. So
Sure.
It was one of my favorite from when I was a kid, and the one that I
Yeah,
went on
lovely.
like multiple times,
Mhm.
and that's what I'm glad that like it holds up still, and like even like Logan for his first time like really loved it, because even still like
So good.
it's one of my favorite in the whole park. Yeah, like it's just
Yeah.
such a fun ride, and it was more interesting now being an adult who's like taller, because some of those things.
Oh
where
yeah,
you're
I thought it was
going
going to
into
take
the,
your
like,
head off,
cliffs,
Frank.
Like,
Corkscrew, yeah, it's so
and, like,
good.
I was
Frank, there's that one that I was like, I felt I almost got my
I
head
ducked
clipped
too,
on,
yeah.
and I had to duck down, and I'm like, I really hope Frank ducked down because he would have got his head taken clean off.
Well, I said at one point, because I believe it was like me and you, Cameron, in like one cart, and then Frank and Logan in the
Oh,
other
yeah.
behind us, and this is one where it's one bar for the cart. So you obviously being a little bit of a bigger guy than me,
They didn't have
you-
the
you were
problem
like-
with it was with Big Thunder Mountain was there wasn't enough space in front of me. Like with Space Mountain, I could like slink my feet down,
Mhm.
but that's not a possibility in Big Thunder Mountain. And so like I had to like smush it onto my legs as much as possible.
Right.
But yeah.
But I'm just saying there was still a bit of space between me and the bar because
Yeah.
of this. And so you were like, I was so glad I was not standing for this. And I was like, I was definitely out of my seat, like more vertical than I should have been on that ride a couple times. But I know that the height, I know I'm fine on that one for the most part. But yeah, like especially at the end when you're like going under the like the skeletons of like the weird like dinosaur fossil or whatever that's there, like that you could probably reach out and like mess up your hand on or something like that. But yeah, that's definitely a fun one. It's definitely one of those that I always think of as like a very underrated ride. So I appreciate that
Yeah.
everybody really loves that
I
one.
loved it. Yeah, it's so great.
It's underrated because one, it's in Frontierland, which is notorious as like the quote unquote least popular land.
Yeah.
When they were talking about like demolishing Frontierland for Galaxy's Edge, I got really kind of like sad because Big Thunder Mountain and some like really just like fun little areas that are just like cool, chill places Like they kept those there. I know that people will probably say, well, Splash Mountain's the real crown jewel. Get bent. I don't care what you think.
Splash Mountain isn't even like Splash Mountain isn't Frontierland. Splash Mountain is 2 lands away. Splash Mountain is Critter Country. Frontierland is basically Big Thunder Mountain, the shooting gallery that we walked through, where you actually have to like pay 50 cents to like shoot the little BB guns or whatever. And it's basically like the Columbia and the Mark Twain. And
the Tom Sawyer Fort.
And yeah, you can kind of make the case because like the docking point to get over to Tom Sawyer Island is like over more in New Orleans Square at this point. But yeah, like Tom Sawyer Island, it would be also Frontierland. But yeah, it's it was more it's for me it's more that it's not connected to any property. It's just a weird ride in Disneyland.
Right, yeah.
Big Thunder Mountain. Big Thunder Mountain was it's not connected to any film property, but most Frontierland isn't. It's part of the
right. It's public domain land kind of area.
It's kind of that, but it's also a like, and I brought it up when we were on our trip because it's like this is a weird thing that they just have this here in Disneyland, but there was a 15 to 20 years period where Disney made a crap ton of prairie, Western kind of like, not even like full Western cowboy films, but just like people living on the frontier kind of films. Films about like things like Davy Crockett, all sorts of like frontier concept ideas and properties were put through. I think I'm trying to remember who was like a child in them, and he's like an old man now.
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell was in one. About the Boy Scouts. Like there's tons of films like this that are just like a very dated concept and idea for films that are just not done anymore, and that's what Frontierland is based off of, is kind of like that frontier spirit.
Yeah.
Which we now mostly associate with genocide. So
there's that too. Speaking of genocide, that's not really a good segue. That's when we headed back over to Star Wars Land, right? After Big Thunder.
Yep.
We did Oga's Cantina.
This is when we did we did Smuggler's Run again. We did Oga's Cantina.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah, I basically put in for Oga's Cantina on the way over. We hung out. That was, I think, probably when I learned that I could, like, there's basically that play thing in like the Play Disney Parks app or whatever, where you can basically hack into things around the Galaxy's Edge Park. That was cool. I hacked a probe droid and a few like door panels and stuff. So yeah, we did Oga's Cantina. Logan did not like the blue milk, so
I did not like it either.
It was
bad.
like fruity flavored milk. Yeah,
it was coconut and pineapple. Yeah. And rice milk. It was not good.
Strange.
I wanted to try it, especially since you already had it, but like you guys were just talking so much shit about it that I was like, I guess it's not even worth it.
Yeah.
Well, Logan and I both taste.
Though.
Yeah, the cookie was good.
Cookie was good. Yeah.
Logan and I were both talking. We're like, there's something about like that's in this that we just both really don't like. Like we don't like it overall, but there's also like a flavor in here that is terrible and we do not care for. And it turned out it was pineapple because Logan and I both hate pineapple.
Yep.
I had the hyperdrive, which is
you really love that. You had a
man,
pair of
that
it looked cool.
Second one, yeah.
This was a non-alcoholic,
non-alcoholic one, but I really did it because I was like, I don't really care for like anything else they really have going on here. And man, oh man, was I impressed! Like it is a full-on like fruit punch cocktail that is just it's one part Mountain Berry Blast Powerade, one part white cranberry juice. They take like a black cherry puree that they have and like put that in there, and it comes out like little like bulbous like pieces of like pureed fruit. And pro maneuver is to mix in the puree, because the first one I didn't mix in the puree until it was down towards the bottom. And that was my mistake. The second one, I mixed it in prior to it, and it was delicious. And it is just a fantastic, fun, sweet, and like a little bit of sweet, a little bit of sour, just kind of like and also like non not just non-alcoholic, but also like non-soda, like no non-carbonated drink. So there's no bubbles in it or anything. So it's just a flat drink, and it tastes phenomenal. It's a little fun experience. And just like it is like this is a cool, fun drink that I could definitely that is definitely like from Star Wars.
Mhm.
It's something that you would see in like some people's hands for sure.
Yeah, we'd already ordered around, so I didn't think about it, or by the time I saw like our bartender showing off the beer flight to somebody else, that is
Mhm.
basically like a wooden board, and then all of the beer comes in basically like Rancor teeth, and you're paying $100 for the thing, so they let you keep basically all of that as like a souvenir. And I was like, oh, that's definitely that would be a fun thing to do. Like the next time I'm there with a group of people,
Mhm.
would be to to splurge and treat myself to one of those things. Just because it's like, oh, that's a fun little novelty thing that you're not going to necessarily get anywhere else.
I think of three things now when I think of Galaxy's Edge. I think of like souvenir stuff. One is lightsabers, of course. The other is the Build-A-Droid that we went through. But the third thing is definitely the beer flights in Oga's Cantina. Like that aspect of things is like that is super cool.
Yeah,
that you can like take that home with you.
The one that the other one that's in there is like if you order a Yub Nub, you can get basically just the Yub Nub, which is like a rum based drink, I believe, or you can get like the Yub Nub in a souvenir cup that's basically like like Endor or like Ewok carved kind of like little wooden kind of cup, which is another cool little souvenir.
It's like it's like a tiki cup, but not racist.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we did Smuggler's Run, which so that time you guys, Logan and Frank piloted. I was a gunner, and Cam I think was an engineer that time around.
It was only the four of us, and they said we couldn't do it, but we did it.
Yeah, I mean, both times we got both coaxial things, which is better than half of the times I've been on that ride with complete strangers. So good looking out, a ship full of gamers.
I did think it was funny, the like juxtaposition of fueling up at the bar and then going to pilot a spaceship for like a smuggling run, and I was like, I guess this is what smugglers would really do in this universe. So
we felt very smugglery the second time for sure.
Yeah, completely.
I will say I loved being the engineer because there's so much to do during the ride itself.
Yeah.
Also because if I don't do my job, when our ship goes down, it doesn't get back up. I realized. No, because I'm like,
we're all pushing buttons when
you have to
redo that drop. Like everybody's pushing stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. No, for me it was just more of like I had so many buttons to push.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You've got the most things that are lighting up back there.
Yeah. It's like, oh, we need to do this. Okay, cool. It's like, oh, do we just get hit by something? Cool. You need to flip a switch, and it's like it's very cool. But the best part is you're in charge of the harpoon to grab the coaxial.
Yep.
And the thing is, you have to aim it. And your aiming is because you're not shifting your aim anywhere. Your aiming is dependent upon the piloting that's going on.
Yeah.
And so you have to wait for the right moment of when they're perfectly aligned to just like launch that. And then of course you have to do a thing to reel it in. Which is I imagine is harder when you're by yourself.
I mean, maybe it's basically just like tapping a button a lot, button mashing, even in like real life Star Wars rides. One of the times I was on that, the guy who was basically controlling like left to right steering just did not line up behind the train at all for that second one or whatever. So it was just like, well, and I think I was the engineer at that point, and it was just like, well, I can't do anything because he's just not even going anywhere near the Oh well, I guess we're just not going to get the second one. Whatever. After Smuggler's Run, part 2 was our epic building of the lightsabers. Actually, I guess we went into the shop real quick first. But yes, epic building of the lightsabers. So everybody go ahead and give your thoughts on that experience.
Cam, go.
It was such a special experience. I don't know whether to consider it magical or spiritual. That is just such a tailored, perfectly tailored, like moment where they have the music and like the speech is clearly prepared because it's done to the music cues.
That dude nailed it though. That dude did a great job.
Yeah, he did an incredible job.
Yeah. I don't think they let you do this unless you can like 100% nail it. As for cast members, but it was truly a wonderful experience. Whether it was like from the moment you pay to do it, they give you your pin and say, pin this to your shirt, like put it on, because that tells them what to give you. And from that moment forward, you are in a secret smuggling type moment of, we're building lightsabers because we need more lights. We need more people willing to fight in this galaxy. And so we're like, this workshop of builders that they have is just dedicated towards that. And it's truly special. It is one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had in my life, much less at Disneyland. And it was truly, truly amazing.
Frank, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you there. Like from beginning to end, it's such a great experience, especially from like the speech at the beginning, and even when like he holds up the lightsaber hilt and it kind of like does the music and the lights, and then he goes through all the different kyber crystals and all the people who have like held them before, and just kind of getting to assemble it and kind of go through the whole process is great. And one of the moments for me that I've thought about since then is when they pull out the container that has all the kyber crystals in it, and it's like they have to actually like pull out that giant like mechanism, and they walk it around and you get to pick, and like they handed it to me and I looked exactly at the red one and I didn't look at any of the other ones, and it's like shiny just like how it would be, and I was just like, oh, you got to trust the Force, and you just grab that one. And I was like, I get they're all like LED'd and shiny, but I just, when you look at it and it just shines exactly how like I think it would in universe, it's such a special moment. And so I because even before when we were in line, I was like on the fence of what color, but then as soon as they handed it to me, I was like, that one. And there's multiple red ones, but I chose that exact one. And the other moment that I think is super great is like when they actually put the hilt into the blade and you get to like ignite it, and this cover just kind of comes undone and everybody gets to see theirs. And like I think that's such an amazing little moment. That's like so fun.
Yeah. It was fun because I think this is probably one of the things we talked about a lot on the drive out there was like what color was people going to do, what kind. Like Cameron has been researching this for years. I obviously already have one because I went and did one in September of last year. And like Logan, you were very much just kind of like you were going to go with whatever felt right in the moment.
Yeah,
and Frank, you were kind of
yeah.
like figuring out landing on where you were going to go. I think you started doing a lot of the research like the night before, in terms of like what style and design and stuff we were going to look for. I loved that like ultimately we all ended up picking like you can pick basically one of four colors in there, and we basically each picked a different unique color. I think even on the hilts, I think Logan and I were the only like we paired up with kind of the modern Jedi. Cameron went with like the natural style, and Frank went with a badass Sith saber to go along with his red. So yeah, that was extra cool vibes of we each kind of got our own little flavor of the thing. Logan, what was the experience like for you?
Yeah, I think it's probably as a singular moment or experience the highlight of the trip, right, of the 2 days. I think I can say it in a really mean way. I can say it in a nice way, so I'll say it in a nice way. I think they understood the spirit of Star Wars so much, like some things in that universe maybe don't. And I think they just so understood, I think, the special moments and like the little things, and like not having to make it like overly flourishing and like overly dramatic. Even it just, the dramatic moments come in those small quiet little moments, right? And these kind of throwaway lines they give, they just add extra weight and heft to everything you're doing, right? And I think that's part of what makes Star Wars so beautiful, are those quiet moments and those understated moments, right? Like the series' most iconic image is arguably Luke looking at the twin suns as music plays and no words are said, right? And you get so much from that moment. And this sort of felt like that a little bit, where it's just the music is playing as you build your hilt and put it together, right? And, I had a very similar moment to Frank where like I didn't know what color lightsaber I wanted to choose until I got in there, and then it was just I saw that green, and it was just like glinting and like gleaming and shining so bright to me, and it looked like it was almost calling out, right? And I just instantly knew I had to choose that. And so, yeah, I think it understands the magic, to take a line from Cameron, so well about what makes Star Wars, and what makes that universe special, and what makes these characters and these moments so unique and singular. And it delivers that to a room of 12 people simultaneously, while making each one have their own moment that is just theirs and is unique to them, and makes them feel like they are being the ones directly spoken to, like the camera's on them and the rest are just extras almost. And the ability and the way they're able to do that, from the cast members' performances, which, like Frank said, are fantastic all the way through, to the musical cues, to like the environment you're in itself, to the task you're doing. They just make you feel like you are the main character in your own journey that is about to begin. And yeah, the final moment of like lifting up the lightsaber, it glowing, and being in a room of 12 people of various ages and builds, kind of all lifting the lightsabers up together, is a scene that you never see in the movies, but you've always dreamed of in your head, right? Of being like the knights in like the Old Republic, kind of having this like King Arthur moment, is just as fantastic as you would want it to be, right? Like, I think the whole Galaxy's Edge experience is such a special experience if you're a fan of Star Wars, or I would assume even if you're not, but if you're a fan of Star Wars, obviously it is. And that is kind of the capstone, I think, to that. And so, yeah, it is a beautiful moment, and one that I think will take your breath away. And Trevor kind of had, in some ways, the best of all of us, because he had already had his moment, so he could just enjoy all of our, I'm sure, childlike glee and dumb faces as we kind of sat there like thunderstruck at every moment that's happening in the process. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, it was very fun, and especially because obviously I mentioned before this, we had gone into one of the shops nearby, and I stole this idea from Josh Silverman, shout out at Bear Punch, who told me about this when I hung out with him in December at Disney. When he had built his lightsaber, he had basically gone in and got one of the other color crystals beforehand, and brought that in with him, and basically, like, as they were putting in the crystals, he kind of like confirmed with the person that he could use one of those ones, and they're like, oh yeah, no problem. So I basically took that idea and did the exact same thing. I bought one of the yellow crystals before going in there, opened it, popped it in my back pocket, and I made the call when I watched you grab the green crystal, Logan, and then like confirmed as Cameron grabbed purple and Frank grabbed red. I was like, okay, I'll take the blue one, so that like if we need to, like, all four of us have kind of that unique flavor. But then I also put the blue one in my back pocket and slipped the yellow one in the lightsaber as we were building it, and just kind of getting to enjoy like that. That like sneaky, little roguish vibe of it, so that like when mine comes out, it's completely different from any other in the room, because you can't just pick a yellow one in the room if you're not in there prepared for it. Was an extra fun little flavor for me to be like, I'm level 2 at this, because I went through this before. I've got one of these back home, and it's awesome and great. And I want this kind of extra little vibe of like, making myself an extra special Jedi in that in the sneaky room like that. But yeah, that was just a very fun experience. And I remember, like, so I did this after having also done the Harry Potter Ollivander's wand shop experience at Universal Studios, which this is very clearly kind of like taking lessons from, because you go into Ollivander's, and spoilers for that experience, but it's like a whole bunch of people packed in, and they basically pick like one child to, pick out a wand kind of thing. And the person giving the presentation kind of hands different wands. The kid tries to cast different spells, and like things around the room don't work to different degrees, and then one of them suddenly works, and the wand has found its wizard kind of thing. And this experience that they use for Savi's workshop is basically that, but it's personalized for everybody in the room, and has so much. It has such a great story to it. It does have those like beautiful musical cues that kind of coincide with, them talking about Luke Skywalker, and you hear kind of the
The
twin
legend,
sons
Luke
theme and
Skywalker,
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I remember the first time going through that and tearing up when just how perfectly the speech lined up with the music and the cues that they're playing with, and the lighting of that room as well, when it kind of like very subtly kind of starts shifting to the colors of the sabers that you're going to be making, or when Yoda speaks at you, and we kind of get the green vibes and stuff. Just so much charm and utter joy. Again, like the fact that Galaxy's Edge exists and will be magical for kids of all ages, including kids in their 30s or late 20s, getting to enjoy this like we did, in this incredibly special magical way, is just such a cool thing that I look forward to, people getting to experience for many, many years to come.
That's the thing for me, is like the last thing is that, like, even just talking with all of us now, like I can imagine the experience, because there were like a couple kids there, and like of being the dad of like that kid, right? And like having grown up loving Star Wars, right, your whole life, and having those like Target lightsabers as a kid, right? And like you never got this moment if you were that dad. You never get to build your own lightsaber growing up, but like your kid can, right? It's like I can only imagine being like the dad in that room with us who like watches his kid build this thing that the kid now loves, the dad loved too, right? And like that like kind of generational moment, I bet you would have been like such a cool experience for him to kind of have with their like kid in that setting.
And then I feel bad for the dad who came out and like asked me while we were taking pictures out in front of the Falcon. He's like, "Where'd you guys get those?" And I told him, he's like, "Do you mind if I ask how much they cost?" I'm like, "Yeah, here's how much." He's like, "Oh shit." And he goes like, "Sorry, honey, you might not be able to get one of those today."
Yeah.
Although shout out to the other dad who we ran into at the gift shop, who's
just like happy to buy any lightsaber, any and all lightsabers for their kid.
Hit me up. He said, "Hey, do you think my kid would like the Count Dooku lightsaber?"
The Count Dooku one, yeah.
My first thought was, "Sir, I don't know your son. Your son could be anybody. You could not have a son. And you just want an excuse to buy this lightsaber, and I'm going to give it to you because guess what?
Yeah,
I want you to spend money on lightsabers, because the more money you spend on lightsabers, the more lightsabers they make and put out to places, and we get different lightsabers."
Yeah.
So yeah, buy Count Dooku's lightsaber, because guess what? Count Dooku has a dope lightsaber.
Yeah.
And he's played by Christopher Lee.
A dope guy.
Yeah, true.
Super dope guy.
That's pretty much day one.
Yeah, well, then we did get pictures taken out in front of the Falcon, which
So
like
good.
one of them is basically what I'm going to probably use for the thumbnail of this episode, is all four of us with our lightsabers.
Is it the ones where we look like we're disgruntled workers and we finally got lightsabers, so we're going to go beat the shit out of
we're looking at the Falcon and have our lightsabers like just hanging behind us, ready to slice. Yeah, maybe I'll go with that one, or maybe I'll go with one of the ones where like we're looking at the camera.
We're actually looking at the camera.
I like the one where it's like, why do you guys look so upset in this photo? Like you're gonna go beat somebody else. It's like, because if you saw how many credits Holdo kept from us,
or
Hondo
definitely
Holdo's somebody.
Yeah.
Holdo's somebody completely different. My bad.
Yeah.
Hondo definitely gypped us on the credit stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, that was pretty much it for day one. I mean, dinner was great. I will say that. Shout out to the food there over either at Rondo's Wraps or whatever Cameron had, or the docking bay fried chicken or chili noodles that me, Logan, and Frank had. Very delicious.
I still think about that Rondo wrap. It was so good.
There you go.
Yeah,
especially after I put the coleslaw in there. So.
There you go. So yeah, day 2, California Adventure, which was another new experience for Logan. And then Frank, you'd never been to California Adventure, right?
I had been, but it's new and updated since I went in like 2005.
Yeah, you probably went when it was still a lot more California based, rather than like, hey, let's throw Pixar in here, and hey, let's throw Avengers in here.
Yeah.
So yeah,
the last time I went was pre Pixar Pier. They had finished the Cars ride, but they hadn't yet put in like the full Springs place yet. So like it was kind of in between
all of the Cars, like Cars Land stuff. Yeah,
Cars Land had not yet been fully established by the time.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't even like the order of events on that day. I think are
Guardians.
are a little more different.
Yeah,
What
Guardians,
did we do? Did we do
yeah.
Guardians first?
We did Guardians first.
So yeah, Guardians. What everybody think of Guardians?
It's awesome. I mean, we did it. Me, Frank, and Trevor did it twice. Cam did it. Yeah, that first one with us. I think Guardians is one of those like special rides that certainly I think me and Frank enjoyed more the second time now that we kind of knew what to expect. And like being in like the front row the second time we did it was such an awesome sensation, such an awesome feeling. I liked it for the first time. It was pretty much the only ride we went on over the 2 days where me and Frank like physically grabbed the other person when we were sitting next to each other, like grabbed each other's legs, and we're like, oh, like what is happening, kind of thing. Yeah, it is. I think that one is kind of like Smuggler's Run in terms of like the queue you're in while waiting to get on the ride is like really fun, and like getting to enjoy that more the second time through, where we kind of were doing it like the regular way and kind of got to see Benicio del Toro's like speech and like look at all the artifacts kind of collected around. Was like a really rad experience. Like the second time through felt weirdly enough like a more authentic version, and like we could just kind of savor everything because we weren't like nervous of like what was going to happen. Yeah, Guardians was awesome. That's one that we did twice. I easily could have done it a third time, and is maybe my favorite ride we did in California Adventure. I'd have to think about that, but certainly it's up there.
Yeah,
I'm about to say something despite the fact that I only went out once. It is my favorite ride in California Adventure.
It's right.
Here's the thing. I also say after going on that ride, I will be able to say with 1,000% surety, with a little bit of room for error, for user error, the seat belts, like the new yellow belted seat belts they have at in Disneyland / California's Adventures, are insanely good. Like the quality on them is fantastic. I could not give them a higher possible rating. Like they're phenomenal. And I say this because, and I was like, I had prepped myself ready to go on this one, because I'm like, you're really actually like, you're not in any, like, it's not like you're on a roller coaster because you're just in the room. You're in the little like thing there and you're strapped to your seat and you're just going up and down. And so it's tricking your body, but in your mind, you know, you're really not even moving that much. Like realistically, like it's moving you up and down, but it's like an elevator, like you're fine. And it's even more secure than even an elevator is, because they have all the things like securing the ride, like the floor that you're on, like
and also
with even
you to
more.
The seats, yeah.
And you're strapped to the seats too. Like it's safer than being in an elevator. Mm-hmm. But there's nothing to prepare you, because like that first drop happens, and it's like and you're like, what? And there's a brief moment where it's like, did my butt just leave the seat for that moment? And it's like, It's like, okay, well, I'm sitting on the inside of it, so I have the bar to hold on to. So I'll just like hold on to that and I'll be fine. No. I was not prepared for my butt to be out of the seat as much as it was. And so in order to secure myself, we never got the photo of it.
Yeah, they sadly never came through.
Which sucks because like
the second ride that we did with me, Trevor, and Frank was like, I think the best picture we took over the 2 days. Like we were all so ready for that picture when it got taken. Like we were all on our A game for it.
I was annoyed because like I mean a lot of people on those rides will just take a picture of the screen or whatever. And I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna type in the thing, and you're gonna give me the high quality image of this. And I'm so mad that I didn't at least try and get like just those ones. Especially the second one, when we knew like the first one hadn't come through hours earlier or whatever. So I'm annoyed by that.
The first one that I'm in, I will distinctly remember, because you can't really see my face in it because they framed the photo for when it dropped, and so people are like hanging in the air. I was not hanging in the air because I had grabbed the bar, I had grabbed my seatbelt, and I was holding myself on, like my butt to the seat. And so I remember distinctly, I'm like a full head shorter than everybody in that ride. Like you cannot see, you can see my hair and like the top of my head, and that's it. Like that ride, like, but still, I think that the experience overall, and also just like the fact that like, we went on a bunch of stuff and I never really got scared for any of it. But I got like, that scared the pants off me. And I'm like, what an incredible ride. The problem that I had in riding going at a follow-up time is just because like my stomach never settled after that one. Like that morning I had a coffee, like another slice of coffee, and just like my stomach just did not settle after that one. And I had a feeling that if I went on it again, I would be in Frank's position after Space Mountain.
Yeah.
So.
Plus, I would say like that when we went on it a second time, we waited in the normal line for it, which was going to be like a 40-minute wait or something like that. And you were like, oh,
my feet could not handle that.
I don't really feel like doing that. So, yeah.
And by the end of the second day, my feet were just like done, like 100% done.
Yeah.
So,
what do we do after Guardians then? Is that when we did Web Slinger?
Yeah, we did Web Slinger right after that. Went to Avengers Campus, check that out.
Yeah.
Because the gift shop from Guardians leads right into Avengers Campus.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And I was worried because the time we'd got for Web Slingers, like my hour had passed, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be the first time I'm really testing this theory of like, do they still let you in? And they did. And I was like, okay, phew.
I think the whole idea of that, like they'll still let you in like 10 to 15 minutes after, is because if you get to your line on time, sometimes that line's going to take 10 to 15 minutes for you before you can even scan them.
Yeah, sometimes.
So,
so what do we think of Web Slingers?
That was a great ride too. Like, and the thing that, I mean, I love Spider-Man. He's like my favorite hero since I was a kid. And that like is such a great, like makes you feel like Spider-Man ride, and just kind of like, it's also not like an intense thrill ride or anything like Guardians is. It's just like, hey, we're just going on an adventure and it's telling you a story. And, you know, from the gaming side of things, I was really impressed at how well the motion controls work, because you don't actually have anything. You're just using your arms to web sling. You don't actually have a gun or anything, but I never felt like it mistracked whatever I was trying to do. And even I would just look at like a random thing on the TV and I would go like that, and it would hit exactly what I was trying to hit. And like, was really impressive to me.
If you notice, it doesn't just track your arms, it tracks your shoulder, like from your shoulders down to your fingertips. And then from your shoulders, it scans your neck up to the top of your head. So so my theory on it was, it knows not only is it noticing where you're slinging your hands, it notices where you're looking.
Yeah.
Because if I thought I missed something and I tried it again, I'd hit it. So it does such like that technology. Once again, this is the second like newest ride that they have at Disneyland. And I think between this and Rise of the Resistance, like these are the new experiences that we're going to be getting for rides in the future.
Yeah, this one is the newest. This came after Rise of the Resistance.
Yeah. So for me, these are like the two like epitome of like, this is what the future of theme parks, the future of Disneyland is going to be. And that makes me so excited, because those experiences are intensely immersive, because also the queue, as you're going through it, you're watching a presentation with Tom Holland in it. And it's like, it's so cool and it's fun and interesting. But I do have to say, like, the idea of like actually also shout out to Frank for just completely owning us hard.
Frank did great.
Like had enough points that it probably, if we took like two of our scores and put it together, we might beat Frank. Like, holy crap. Like, what a great job, Frank.
I think by the end, I think we were all more or less even on there.
Well, I died.
Actually, that's Frank's.
By the end, we didn't. Yeah, by the end, we didn't actually see, because something happened that like, it only had like mine, and I think whoever was the third person in. It only had like
you and Cameron that they showed.
Yeah, it only had like the first and third scores, but it had like our overall score as a crew, and we ended up fourth that hour. Go us! Woo-hoo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not bad at all. Like fourth that hour. Although you see some of those scores and you're like, holy crap! Some people really.
How the hell did they do that? Yeah, it's like I definitely know we could have done the first giant spider bot better. I think we only got like a bronze on that or something like that. But yeah,
to be fair, we weren't prepared. We weren't prepared for how to fight it. We were just kind of slinging webs at it.
Yeah,
and I think going forward, because the next giant spider we took down like right away.
Yeah,
no problem. So I think if we'd gone back a second time, definitely could have done that better.
Yeah,
granted. Yeah,
that's why I think we did great, especially because we got first try with all of us. We got fourth the hour, but I think if we did do it again, I think we could do better, because I know for a fact that like that last round, my arms died and I didn't finish the round. So I'm like, there's points on the table like that. And if we all got more points, like we could, like we were at 800 and something thousand. The high score for the month was like just over 1 million, which is like not a huge difference. Like I feel like we could have had a great score, maybe even top for the hour.
Yeah.
What has to happen is, because Frank and I both kind of like died out at the end. So So what we have to do is, Frank, you and I got to do a lot of bicep curls before we go next time. Like in preparation for it, we're just going to come in and we're just going to be able just to thwip the entire time, no problem.
There you go. Anything to add, Logan?
No, I liked it. I think I liked it the least out of all of us. It sounds like, but yeah, I liked it a lot.
That's fair.
Well, so that was something I kind of want to throw out because it's a fun ride, but it's also like kind of short and like doesn't do like a ton. So I wonder if there's something they can maybe do to like update or change it in the future, or even what I think would help it is if it's like, obviously right now it's the newest ride, so it's super popular, but if there's like not a huge wait for it and you could kind of like do it a lot, or if they can change up the scenes a lot, I think it could be a more fun, like impactful ride, maybe even like a Star Tours kind of thing. But right now I feel like it's kind of like basic, even though it's like fun. It's not something I would want to do like over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, I could definitely see them like switching up, like, oh, instead of all the like replicate spider bots, there's a different challenge or something that you have to do, because it's, I mean, at that point it's just the ride really, and it's switching out the one thing I will touch on, since we didn't really see the queue of that one at all. It has some fun little like world building stuff in the MCU, like Harley Keener, the kid from Iron Man 3, is one of the like students at that institute, and there was a thing we saw, there was like a no potato gun accidents, or days since potato gun accidents or something like that. There was like a sign on one of the walls in there, but you see him. And they also have one of the girls that's like also in there, and I think is like, you can see her in like the rides with Peter or something like that, is basically the character that is Squirrel Girl, Noreen something, I think. So it's like, oh, they've kind of cast a Squirrel Girl in the MCU. She's just pretty much exclusive to this MCU ride, as just a fun little like, oh, that's a cool little Easter eggy thing that obviously we would not see there. And then like the other two, I think, kids are basically like exchange students from Wakanda, as kind of like extra flavor of the ride. But so from there, is that when we did Incredicoaster and or Midway Mania?
We did Midway Mania first.
Midway Mania.
Yeah.
Frank
and I decided not to go on Incredicoaster because fuck that.
Right, yeah. So Midway Mania, same premise, just with an actual gun that we're shooting at Midway rides instead of
and you have to pull the string on it, and I realized that if I put the string between my fingers here and did this, I could do like a machine gun type thing. Yep. My accuracy was piss poor. It was terrible, but I got so many points. Great.
I think Midway Mania was actually my favorite of the 3 shooter rides. I think I actually liked it more than Web Slingers a little bit, just because like, it's another ride that beats up a little bit. Like you were spinning around quick when it like spins you around.
It literally hits you in the face with air, like a balloon pops, and it's like hits you with gust.
Certainly, it felt longer, and like I like the fact that it was like a classic thing, and like pulling the string. And me and Frank had a ton of fun just like competing with each other on that.
Yeah, that was one. Right at the end, because we had just done Web Slingers, my arm was also killing me for this one. And so like right at the end when it's like, okay, just keep firing at this plate, and like eventually kind of the numbers go up and you can get like a higher and higher score. Like that was where like I tried switching hands in between, and I was like, oh, this was a bad idea because I just completely crapped out there. Still got best of the cart, so high score for me again. But also I feel like that's cheating anyway, because I know where all this stuff is. But yeah, I'm glad everybody loved that one, because that's always one of my favorite fun ones to do. And it's one that like usually has a long line, so doing the fast pass is the way to do that one. Definitely, or the lightning lane. So then Logan and I did Incredicoaster. What do you think of Incredicoaster, Logan?
It's rad. It is a ton of fun.
It is the like absolute most traditional roller coaster. I mean, it is just a straight up roller coaster.
That's a straight up roller coaster. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I think it's a ton of fun. I think kind of similar to Big Thunder Mountain. I love the fact that it is just like, this is a roller coaster. Just like enjoy yourself.
Yeah. They throw on a little bit of like Incredibles to it.
Yeah, the loop is a ton of fun. Yeah, like it, weirdly enough, as like a foreshadow, like there's a ride we did later on in the night that I felt, and I know Trevor and Frank agree with me, that was much more like, this is dicey than I ever felt on Incredicoaster. Like Incredicoaster, I was always like, this is going great, it's totally fine. Like I know I'm like worried anything's gonna happen, and it's going so smooth, even when it's going quickly. Yeah, that ride runs like butter, and the line is never really long because it just goes so quick, and they can have so many people on it at once. Yeah, it's a ton of fun.
Yeah. Then
I think
we put in for Soren at that point, and then Soren was going to be like,
had to wait,
3 hours or something.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, let's kill some time. So we did lunch, and then we did also do the Radiator Springs, because we could buy that one separately. So what'd you guys think of Radiator Springs?
It's awesome.
It was
a ton
of fun.
As somebody
just
who
for, like, the
who
race part in
notably,
particular.
as somebody who notably does not care for cars
Mhm.
at all, I had a blast. So that tells you how much fun it is.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That's
It
one
was
that
an awesome experience.
I always like. I mean, it makes perfect sense for why it has such a crazy long line, and why that is the best ride to just single rider, because they're always like it's a cart of 6 people, and as we kind of talked about a couple times throughout, like a lot of Disneyland is built for like parties of 4, like that's pretty much their sweet spot, their magic number. So if you get a party of 4 on a Cars ride, there's 2 empty spots that they need to fill to try and like maximize the amount of people going on it. So like that's a good one to do if you want to do that one a second time. But we just went so we could all be together for this one. We did the Lightning Lane thing as well. Enjoyed that one. And yeah, it's like it's such a weird like mix of like, oh, it's one of the storybook rides for like the first chunk of it. Like nice peaceful drive.
Yeah.
Great. It's another one. Great vistas. You kind of go through a tunnel thing, and then you come out, and that music is just playing as like the waterfalls come. It's the same feeling as coming out into Galaxy's Edge, but for like people who really love cars.
Yeah.
And then but then yeah, the race at the end is just like a fun thrill ride component to it. Obviously we won, so that was another bonus bit of fun to the ride.
There was a kid in the other car who was like
you say this, I just saw you trash talking some other kid.
Yeah, I only saw
was
Cameron.
like,
I didn't
all
even
right,
say
Cameron,
I didn't
all right.
I just did this. I just do it like this.
Yeah.
That wasn't
Like,
trash
Cameron's
talk. If
The
there was
Rock
trash talk,
back
I
in
would have talked to that
2002.
child in a much harsher, like, I know how to trash talk. That was not me trash talking, okay?
All right.
I did not
That's good.
insult his mother, his family, his friends, who he is as a person. I did not break him down emotionally and mentally to the point where he felt like a slug of a human being. No, I did not trash talk. I merely did he was doing this thing like, you're dead, and I just went, bring it on. Like, that's all it was.
Cars was a fun ride.
Yeah, Cars was fun.
It helped the immersion of the ride, I'm sure. Yeah, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it, especially because they do the corkscrew, like a little bit of a corkscrew on some of them.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. I think it is a super fun ride, especially because, like, I mean, for me at least, I like the Cars movie. I also like Cars in general, so it's cool that it gives you like the white wall tires at one point, and when they also give you the like in the beginning of the drag race, you do like kind of like a burnout, rev the engine, which is totally like drag race stuff. So it's like I think it's like a really fun, just little ride that is like it's one of those ones that anyone can do and have like a good time. Like it's not just for like kids or adults. Like it's just everyone can have fun.
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious that Frank said a cab when the cop showed up.
When Doc Hudson was there waiting for us.
Hudson pops up and he goes, and Frank goes, "Oh, a cab." It's like,
it's like no Doc Hudson.
Nice. So then Soren. I mean, we probably at some point like caught more like Avengers Campus kind of the show. Like, yeah, I think we went and saw the Spider-Man.
It was very brief.
The Spider-Man show was sick.
Yeah. It was the shortest I've ever seen it. Like
it was like 2
guy
minutes.
basically like popped up there, did like a backflip and then bounced. And I was like, all right, like maybe he's feeling under the weather or something. Because usually I've seen it like and he kind of does like a back and forth and does a whole bunch of banter and stuff and then like ends it with like a big backflip kind of thing and then goes off and they swing Spider-Man through the air.
It could just be like he's the understudy, like it was his day to do it.
Maybe.
Like, entirely possible. He's not. It could even be like, hey, the guys we use for Spider-Man are out sick or something. Who like can anybody do this? I can do a backflip. You're Spider-Man today.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Like
they went and grabbed the guy who plays Shang-Chi and we're like, hey, can you do this? Great. Just like you don't need to know the routine. Just walk over, do a backflip, and then come off, and we'll be good.
Yeah.
Try to parkour. You don't even have to successfully parkour.
Yeah, they
Just
also
do
didn't
it.
have him like come down and like, because like normally it'll be
Interact at
they'll
all,
go and
yeah.
like, you know, stand behind a chain thing and they'll do like pictures with kids or whatever, and they didn't even do that this time. It's like, all right, this is weird.
Oh no, you guys missed it. He came down and there was no like fence or anything. He was able to like just like have pictures taken with him in front of.
No, he came
He
down. There was
did.
no fence, but then he immediately left again. Yeah. He
Yeah.
didn't
Oh, I
stay
didn't.
at
I thought he
all.
stayed.
Yeah.
I thought he stayed for
No.
photos. I didn't realize he left
Nope.
right
Yeah, he
away.
basically came down, waved, and then bounced.
And then bounced.
And I was like,
yeah.
all right, that was weird. But yes, so Soren, we finally got around to Soren. What everybody think of Soren?
It's
I felt bad.
awesome.
I felt bad for Frank
You
because
felt bad.
I
You
mean,
lied to Frank. It's so good. It was so like that. Like that's an underrated part of why I think I love Soren so much. Is that like all day long, Cam is like, "You're not gonna get that high. You're not gonna lift up. It's gonna be like a few inches kind of thing." And I was like, and so in my mind too, I'm like, okay, sure. And he's like, "You're not like strapped in like this. It's gonna be chill." And I was like, okay, yeah, like it's gonna. I don't know what it's gonna be. I guess like Star Tours, I suppose. And then getting it on there, and like whenever we have our feet dangling, then I'm like, he said we weren't gonna have our feet dangling. And then the minute we like lift off and go forward like 10 feet in the air, I'm like, oh, he definitely gave Frank a bad advice here.
Yeah, no, for me it was
so
I
good.
like I figured it out while like after we went up because I realized they stack the rows on top of each other. So first row is like 15 20 feet up in the air, second row is like 10 to 15 feet up in the air, and then the third row, which is the one in the back, just comes up and it's like only 5 feet off the air. We must have been like I also went on this ride when I was like 14. So that was like, 17 years ago. And so in my memory, I'm pretty sure we must have been in the back row because we were not that far up off the ground.
Iconic.
And so like in my memory, that's what it was. And then we got in there, we're in the second row, and I'm like, okay, like I'm excited. I forgot exactly how they do this. And so
Also a little bit of extra tension because one of the seats in our row basically crapped out,
Yeah.
and they basically had to like
Yeah.
have us move all over one seat or something, and tape off one of the seats. So it's like, okay, the ride is breaking as we're on it. Great, this is gonna be fun. Have fun, Frank.
Yeah.
poor Frank. I'm so sorry, Frank.
I
Well,
think
then
it
at
was
one
fun.
point, and then one point, I was like, Frank's like, I'm like, oh, you're doing okay, Frank? And Frank's like, yeah. I'm like, you smell the grass, Frank? And he just takes like a whiff. He goes, I can smell the grass. And I was like, I love that.
Yeah,
So,
what,
no, that
what did you
definitely-
think, Frank? What was your experience here?
No, I think that pretty much nails a lot of it because I was definitely like, I also am kind of afraid a little bit of heights, and like I've never been on this ride before, and I've never heard anyone. This is another one I've never heard like anyone talk about, and it's also great when in the pre-flight thing, like when you're waiting outside, they're like, if you don't like flying and if you're afraid of heights, you probably shouldn't do this. And I'm like, oh great, like I'm already in line, like walking into the thing, and that's like the final send you off into the ride.
Yeah, shout out to Patrick Warburton.
Yeah, which he was great. Like it's definitely like and it's a super cool and fun ride, and I think it's really chill because it's nice to like just be in the AC, and like I didn't know how intense it was going to be because like Star Tours isn't like wildly intense, but it rocks you around like you're like moving. So I didn't know if it's like this, like, okay, strap in like the Incredicoaster kind of thing, and we're just gonna like whip you around. But it's actually just like a lot more chill. But it definitely like is weird in the beginning when it starts, you do the like lift off where it starts to like take you forward. And I'm kind of glad we weren't on like the top thing. Like I'm glad we were just kind of in like the center.
Yeah.
I will say
But
I felt bad for Frank because like I wasn't expecting us to go that high either. So we both grabbed the bar at the same time, and I felt bad. I was like, Frank was prepared for me not to be afraid of this at all, and here I am afraid in this moment. And I look over, and like Frank has like his eyes closed, and I'm like, oh no, okay, my bad, guys, my bad. And then immediately after we got off, I just got shit on for it. So
the immediate first visual is like you on the top of Mount Everest, and that's when I was like, oh fuck this.
I heard
like,
Frank, yeah. Just like,
and I was like, because it is like
yeah.
the visuals is definitely what got me more than the motion and the height and anything. It's like some of it, but I watched like most of it, but sometimes when it would just get like crazy, I would just be like, nah, I'm good. But that's also why I think that ride is like chill and fun, because like I could have like powered through, and I know I could have, but I was just like, fuck it. Like I just close my eyes. Like I don't care. Like I'm just in a chair.
Just treat it as like a very chill Space Mountain. Like
Exactly.
just going through the dark, you're doing a little bit of like left and right, kind of little hang
smell
glider
grass.
feels.
Yeah, it's fine.
A spout of jasmine's gonna shoot at you.
And I feel like I caught all the big things. Like I saw the polar bears, I saw Taj Mahal, the Great Wall of China. I did see the cows in the grass, because that's when Cam said that to me, and I was like, because I didn't I like
Oh, it wasn't
closed
cows, it
my
was
eyes at one
elephants.
point.
It was
Yeah,
elephants in the
Oh,
Sahara.
in the Serengeti, yeah,
Serengeti, thank you.
out by
but that's like
Mount Kilimanjaro.
I think I got all like the big, awesome plot points. I just like that it definitely when it was the top of Everest, and then also when it goes over the waterfall, I knew we were going to go over the waterfall, and that was another one where I was like, nope.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was like,
I don't
I'm
think
good.
Frank, I don't think that was Everest. I think that was Kilimanjaro.
No, the,
Oh, okay.
the
No,
it's
first one
definitely
is
Was the first one Everest?
Yeah.
It
Okay.
is definitely
Mount,
Everest, yeah.
Mount Kilimanjaro is the Serengeti like fields of Africa with the elephant, and you see Mount Kilimanjaro in the background.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, no, the first one is definitely flying over
Yeah.
the top of Everest. Yeah, that's one. It's a shame, and I feel bad because I did not hear you and Cameron talking about this throughout, because I would have definitely given I would have tried to give a clearer
Trevor would
picture
have stepped in.
of what this is
Yeah.
actually going to be.
As somebody who's not pulling
well-
from like 17-year-old memories.
Yeah.
Well, it was funny too because like I did talk to you about it before Cam had talked to me about it or whatever, and you definitely were like on two kind of like different sides of like what the ride was like. But I was like, it's somewhere in the middle, like it's
Yeah.
fine because like you even said like it's not as bad as Star Tours, and I was like, oh, Star Tours is like nothing.
Yeah.
So if this ride is chiller than Star
It's-
Tours, then like it's fine.
It's interesting because I encountered this like last month when I was there too, of like the things that freak people out. Like I don't think of this as like a I'm afraid of heights kind of ride, because I know mentally you're not that far off the ground or whatever, and you are strapped in or whatever. But yeah, it's like if you are afraid of heights, yeah, there's gonna be a thing that messes you up in the same way that,
30,000
like,
feet in the air,
Yeah.
right above the Everest. Yeah.
yeah. And it's also like we, for as much as that was jarring or whatever, we were in arguably the best seats to be on this ride, because we were in the middle of the three of the sides and the middle like row kind of going height wise. So like we were in the sweet spot for the giant IMAX, domed screen in front of us. Like if you sit elsewhere around there, you can get some weird distortion things where it's like, okay, this doesn't even look realistic anymore kind of vibes to it. But we had probably like the purest view from where we were sitting for it. So, but yeah, I felt bad that we didn't give you the appropriate expectations for what Soarin' was going to be. But, I'm glad you powered through. I'm glad you had fun regardless.
I do.
Even
and
as
I would do it
as,
again.
as you were like, fuck this, as we started to like rise up against the Eiffel Tower.
I do want to give another shout out to another great Frank moment that I was like, I have nothing to say to that really, which is right before we were going on Guardians of the Galaxy for the first time. I just like looked at Frank and was like, how you feeling? He goes, terrified. And like, as that moment, the doors opened, we walked in and I was like, I have nothing to say to you. You were just, sorry, man. I was like, hope we don't die, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm pretty sure I said like, see you on the other side.
yeah, I was like, well, okay.
That's why, like, I know it's safe, and like, I definitely have this like this super logical side of my brain that's like it's totally safe, and then there's just this anxiety part of my brain that's like, dude, it's not even that like I would get hurt; it just knows the feeling I'm about to go through with like the drops and shit, and I'm just like, and with the first time we did the Guardians ride, I had never done that ride before. I didn't do it before when it was Tower of Terror, and as a kid, it freaked me out because when Tower of Terror would drop, you could just hear people screaming from like across the park.
If you're out there standing outside, you see those doors open and you see people up there screaming as they're about to drop. Like that is the tone of that ride being set just walking into California Adventure. You see that. You see people freaking out. And you're about to be one of those people for somebody else.
Yeah, and that's what, because like when I was a kid, I was definitely like a no-go, and I don't even think I was tall enough to go on it at the time anyways, but maybe I was, because there were some young kids when we were there now. I don't know if they've changed it or something, but like, so that was that anxiety of just like, I don't know what this ride is or like what it's going to be like, because it's not even just one drop. It's like the fact that it is like a thrill ride of like just doing it continually. But yeah, after we did it, I mean, man, it's super fun, and I would do it again, especially the second time. I was still like anxious, but now that even we did it that second time, I'm like, nah, this is just like a fun, even though like even knowing what to expect almost made it worse, because I knew when it was going to drop, where before it was just kind of like a crazy up and down kind of adventure. But I definitely got to enjoy it more the second time. And then going back to Soarin', like I would do Soarin' again. Like it is totally, I hope I don't get the top row, but like I would do it again, and I think it'd be fun. I was thinking later, like it would be cool if they transform that into like an Iron Man ride or something. Like they make it like a Marvel, like you're like flying through like Marvel stuff. Like I know it's kind of different from what it is now, but I was like, that'd be a cool little like spin on it.
Yeah, well, so two things on that. One, the ride originally was like soaring over California, and so it was a whole bunch of like just California themed things, like flying over Santa Monica Pier, flying through the redwood
Golden Gate
forest,
Bridge,
kind
I'm
of
sure,
thing,
yeah.
flying, yeah, like over, was it
Orange
not
Groves was
Yosemite? Yeah, Orange Grove's another one. Like just flying over kind of like iconic vistas of North and South California kind of thing. And when they started kind of like turning California Adventure into more of like a, hey, let's maybe step away from just California, like Soarin' became kind of the standard, and like going to see all these places that you're never going to see in real life kind of thing became like a cool kind of flavor for it. I think in terms of, I don't think they'll ever turn that into an Iron Man ride, but I do think one of the things that is basically like next on the docket for Avengers campus area is the Avengers building where they were doing like the stunt show and stuff. Like that will eventually be a ride that's basically like they just, I don't know what they're going to put in there, but it strikes me as something that there will be probably something akin to the Avengers version of Rise of the Resistance over there. And I imagine it'll be like you get in a Quinjet and you are flying around in some kind of like, space in that kind of feel. And that's kind of like what excites me about that whenever that ends up coming out in a few years' time. And maybe it is like, maybe there are, Iron Man elements, or maybe, at some point they kind of incorporate an Iron Man element to the Web Slingers ride of shooting propulsor cannons and stuff like that.
That'd be cool.
I mean, just as a outside of this, the Iron Man VR game is basically that, and it's real cool. You have to have basically PSVR for it, but it's a real cool vibe, and you get a good feel of like, oh, I feel like I'm Iron Man flying this thing, controlling these propulsors, and shooting stuff out. So then I think we finally get to,
we only did one other ride,
to the Goofy's Sky School thing,
yeah,
which I don't think I had ever been on prior to this, and I don't think I ever need to go on again.
Yeah, so we get up there, we're in the ride. I'm like, I'm feeling, my stomach's feeling better now. Like I'm feeling good to go on another ride, and we get there and we are in line, and it's like, this will be fun. It looks like it's a compact little coaster. It's gonna be fine, safe, whatever. It's not gonna be that bad. And we get up there, and as we get in there, I get in and I step in, and I'm like, I am too big for this ride. And I don't mean that just like by my weight. I mean, I don't know how Frank got in it, because Frank's taller than I am. And
yeah, I mean, I was kind of wedged in there too. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't get because once again, you have the little bars like Space Mountain has, but this one, it's just like, I could not get it over. And I was like, and we get there and they're like, okay, everybody ready? I was like, I don't think I fit. Like, I think I'm too big for this. And they go, and like, I could see.
She said, like, I don't think you are. I was like,
yeah,
oh,
all right,
ouch.
I think, well, no, for me, it was like, it was that, but I didn't feel like it was an ouch moment. I was like, I could see her tense up because she's expecting me to be like, well, if I don't fit, then how, but it's like, no, like, I'm like, can I just like, get off? And they're like, yeah, just hop on back off. I was like, do I need to go the exit way? They're like, no, just like do this and we'll let you back down super fast. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And they're all apologizing. They're like, we're so sorry about this and everything. And I'm like, it's okay. I was like, I just was meant to go on this ride. It's fine. Like, like it's totally cool. And then when you guys got off of it, because I chilled over in like the like little restaurant area next to it, that we're doing an Encanto thing with Mirabelle there. And I got to check that out, and it was cool. Because you get to see like little kids super excited to meet Mirabelle, which as the latest like Disney animated movie to come out was like super fun.
Yeah.
And then you guys came out, and I was like, oh yeah, so how was it? And you guys, well, I'll let you tell the story.
I mean, This was the one for me that like beat you up more than the Matterhorn. And like in the like I went into it kind of expecting, I was like, it looks and feels like a roller coaster that you get at a state fairground that like they know basically that thing's coming through town. They're going to put that up together, and then they're going to take it back down at the end. And it's going to be small. It's got to be like packed into a tight space. I was not expecting at the top of the thing to do so much like hard 180s around there, so that you feel like, and there being nothing on the side. So it's like, I was constantly like, oh, like, I don't know, like, obviously this is going to be safe. But my mind was not thinking, obviously, this is going to be safe in those moments. It was thinking, oh, I do not want to be thrown out of the side of this thing and doing the G-force that we're doing on this, like, arguably very kids ride of a roller coaster kind of thing. It is not the, like, you know, the scary, like, loop-de-loop of the Incredicoaster, but like, I think maybe that juxtaposition of, like, thinking it was going to be a much tamer ride versus how, like, whiplashy it ended up being. I was like, oh, this is one I never want to do again.
It's interesting too, because I was going to sit with Cameron, and so when Cameron left, I didn't have like a second body to like serve as kind of like a buffer with me to kind of cushion me. So I'm in there by myself, and that ride is just fucking throwing me around, basically. Like, I'm getting like my ass kicked by this ride, and like, I was blown away by two things. And the first is, like we said, like, that ride is doing such sharp turns that just like throw you into the side of the cart, and just like you said, give you like whiplash. And the second part of that is there are a few moments where like you're like skating around on like those sharp turns, and it is just a sheer drop to your right, and there's nothing below it. It's like, damn, this is definitely more tense than I felt on the Incredicoaster at any point in time. Like, it feel like probably somewhat deliberately, and then probably also just because like it is just a janky ass ride, like it could just like snap off and like just like the car go tumbling down like you're in Temple of Doom, like at any point in time when you're doing those like sharp quick 180 turns. And then the thing that surprised all three of us that went on it was it actually has a like straight up drop that you go on at one point in time that is worse than anything on Incredicoaster or like Matterhorn or Big Thunder Mountain at all. Like, it is just like you go up and then you go straight down. And like, it's hard to judge it maybe fairly because I think me, Trevor, and Frank were all like, this is going to be like, it's not a kiddie ride, but it's like a teen ride kind of thing. It's like not an adult roller coaster kind of ride thing. We were all in that mindset. And
I definitely thought it was the kids roller coaster. It was the like kids that aren't big enough for the Incredicoaster can go on this coaster or something kind of like
thing.
this.
Yeah, and like I was just like, sure, and then it was way more intense than I was expecting to be. And yeah, it kicks the shit out of you. Those turns are intense. Like, for me, it was a weird mix of like, it was fun, but also, goddamn, some of those turns, it really did feel like a strong gust are gonna make us go like Indiana Jones, like tumbling down this like sharp corner we're taking. It was such a interesting last ride to do at Disneyland California Adventure.
Yeah.
I love this ride, probably not for the right reasons, but like it's all the things you guys are talking about it are why like I love this ride because after we did it, because my memory of this, besides the fact that everything you guys are saying is totally correct, is just fun and laughter at how absurd this ride is that it exists. And it's, you know, it's a good sign when there's a sign outside at the front of the line that says like, if you want to see the inspection codes for this ride, go to City Hall and ask about it. Where I'm like, that's how
I thought that was weird. I was like, is that on every roller coaster? When we were going up, I was like, I don't remember seeing that on every roller coaster.
I don't remember seeing it on other roller coasters either.
Yeah, and then
that one sure did.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it comes up enough that this is like a question that people have that they need to like address with a tin sign at the beginning. And that's how I think you know that this is just a genuinely amazing ride. And like, yeah, because it totally just looks like a small kids ride. It doesn't go fast, but it whips you super hard from like 180s and it just keeps doing it. Snakes. Like that's the whole top of the ride is it just snaking 30 feet in the air. Oh, man. And then at that random drop at the end, I think is so amazing because it's so unexpected. And it answered the question that Cam and I had in line where they were like, why are people screaming at the end of the ride? Like, why are so many people yelling at the end of the ride? And I'm like, oh, now I know why. Because it just suddenly drops you 20 feet for no reason. Yeah. Like, and then better than the drop, it slams you at a complete stop.
Yeah.
like there are two complete stops to just dead break you. And then it just kind of wheels you to the end and is like, okay, get off the ride. And it's so fun to me that this is literally like an insane contraption from someone's roller coaster tycoon that got like a low rating that is in the actual park still to this day.
Yeah.
That's all totally accurate.
So after that, I want to give a shout out to California Adventure at night. Because there were a few in
100%.
particular vistas that you guys really, really loved. We went over to kind of we went to the with the pier in the background, basically, where normally for fans of California Adventure, where normally you would be, watching World of Color, as kind of the evening light show, obviously not happening right now. But like getting to see kind of Pixar Pier all lit up at night was a cool thing. We got some cool pictures of that. And then I was like we had walked up and down the Cars Land area earlier, and I wanted to make sure that I showed that to you guys at night, because I think it has a whole different vibe in the evening, with all the neon stuff like that. And then we went and had dinner over at Avengers Campus area over at the Hank Pym's Kitchen.
Which was also great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some nice Pimnini sandwiches, and Cameron, what did you get? You got the chicken.
I got the
sandwich?
chicken sandwich. Oh my gosh, that chicken sandwich was amazing.
Yeah.
Because it's a like really widened out and like flattened piece of like fried chicken, or crispy chicken, and then they put it on like a little slider brioche bun, with like some coleslaw and some other stuff, and like a teriyaki and
something. Yeah,
it's a teriyaki and also a like red chili sauce that they put on it, and it's just like, it's perfect. It's such a great meal. I forgot we had lunch at the pier in up there where you guys got Mexican food, and I got a bunch of good stuff. The bulgogi burrito still haunts me. Like, that was such a good burrito.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to give a shout out to California Adventure at night. Again, like I kind of referenced earlier, me and Frank were losing our shit over it. Frank had one of my favorite lines, I think, of the entire trip, of just like, Disneyland at night is just like, this is Disneyland at night, right? But like California Adventure, like all the different areas actually felt like different places almost when they were at night, with like the lights and like how much they changed it. And like whenever he said it when we were like walking around, it was like, oh, that's such a great way to like describe seeing Adventures Campus like in day or night, or Pixar Pier from day to night, right? Or, especially Cars Land day to night. Cars Land immediately was like a whole different, way cooler thing. And like just those shots of like Pixar Pier with like Incredicoaster going in the background and the lights up everywhere and the Ferris wheel, and like all of it together was one of my favorite like visual things of the entire time we're out in California Adventure and Disneyland. And like was such a perfect ending, I think, to the 2 days of just like all the lights lit up and like all of us just loving all of that.
Yeah. Cool. Any final thoughts on our Disney adventure?
I will say, have not known either one really at all. Have never been to either of these places before. Disneyland is great. I don't want to do Disneyland dirty, but Disneyland's Disneyland. You obviously know what Disneyland is if you're listening to this. But like, as someone who had basically never heard anyone talk about California Adventure before, I was really impressed at how much I actually ended up enjoying that park. Like that was kind of like the sleeper hit to me. It's way smaller. There are fewer rides. Like we easily could have done that in like half a day if we'd done everything without like the delay for Soarin'. But it's so much fun, and it's so cool to see. And especially if you can go like time it to where maybe you're there in like the back half of the day so you can see it at night. I think it's such a cool experience and like such a beautiful like park to just like look at. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to being really surprised at how much I ended up enjoying California Adventure.
Nice. Frank, anything to add?
Yeah, no, I really loved it too. Like, it is, as somebody who had been to California Adventure before, it is still a lot more improved and like better than it used to be. Like, I only have a couple like faint memories of certain things in the park, and I definitely remember mostly like kind of like the boardwalk area and vibes. But now that it is like Pixar Pier, and there's like all these other like Pixar elements thrown in, I think it. And there's also like all the neon and and now that Cars Land is there and the Avengers Campus, and like there's so much more to do, and I know they're going to keep adding more. So I definitely think that is going to be like a really cool element in the future, and I'm excited to see Avengers Campus evolve, because like it's fun. I was like, especially compared to Galaxy's Edge, I think it's a little bit of a letdown right now, but I think it has the potential to be just as great as Galaxy's Edge is. But I think like it's just going to take time to get there.
Cam, anything to add?
I said it there, and I'll say it now. This has been my best trip ever to Disneyland. Getting to go with you guys was an absolute blast. I felt like we did a lot to just kind of like reconnect ourselves after pretty much spending 2 years apart, for the most part. Just like with the pandemic and not going to events, and not seeing each other in person, except for the rare opportunities that Trevor and I think Trevor and I have had. But even then, those are few and far between. So when getting to have this really fun short trip was very, I don't want to use the term intense because I think that has the wrong connotation to it, but it was a lot, and that was a good thing.
I mean, I was going to describe it as an intense, but like in a good way.
Yeah.
We crammed a lot of awesome into the little amount of time we had there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And getting to experience it with you guys, and just also being a fully employed adult going to Disneyland was great. So I had a great time. Thank you.
One last little thing I want to give a shout out that we kind of glossed over earlier, but like when we first walked into the park and we're going to Guardians of the Galaxy, we walked down the old Hollywood.
Oh yeah.
Kind of, I loved your guys' reaction to like the
so cool
kind of the facade at the end that like makes you think that this road goes on so much further than it does. That we ended up getting our pictures in front of at the end of the night as kind of our last little thing before leaving the park. It was definitely a blast getting to obviously I am the biggest of the like Disneyland nerds among the crew, given the amount of times I have gone in recent years, and getting to just share so much of that with you guys was just so much fun. Like Frank, I think you were making the joke that I should just give everything up and just go be a tour guide at Disneyland. And I was like, I definitely been like, that would be fun. It wouldn't pay me nearly as well as I would like, but that like there's an element of like, man, being a Disney Imagineer would be the coolest damn job ever.
Definitely.
And just kind of getting to be in the be in the room or being around the minds that like make this magic happen for generations who love all these different like properties and ideas and stuff is just always so fun and so cool. So yeah, getting to share like my love of that with all you guys. There were only there were a couple of things I was like, oh, it would have been really cool to do that. X, Y, Z kind of thing. Like, we didn't go on Pirates, and Pirates would have been a fun one to do just because it's like such a classic Disney thing. It would have been fun to do the Ferris wheel at California Adventure, sure. But the line ended up being, pretty long and stuff. And so, yeah, it's definitely the kind of thing like, oh, there's still more to do. And I mean, even stuff like the fact that we didn't even look at Toontown or something, like it would have been fun to walk in if we'd had like another day, or even another half day. There are like things that would have been like, oh, cool to just experience or show you guys, as like a, here's a coda to kind of like the big, cool, fun things that we got to do. But yeah, so much fun. Thank you guys all for, thank you for Logan letting me basically hijack your birthday trip, and Cameron, Frank for joining us for that, and having a great old time. Sad we weren't able to get Jazz, and that's entirely on me that I didn't think to reach out and invite her on this, largely because I just didn't think she'd want to come and hang out with the four of us schmucks.
I should also put out like we didn't like all plan on like, oh, let's all do this together, because Logan, like, it was not a like Trevor did not send out the invitations. It was Frank was going to be in town for that time and asked to go, and then I heard Frank was going as well. I was like, well, can I go?
Yeah.
It was
very much like
it was not by invitation. We asked.
Yeah, it was
happening.
We're gonna be here. It could be fun to like take a couple of days of the week Logan was gonna be here and just like bounce over to California and do this thing that we'd kind of loosely been talking about every now and then. Like Cameron obviously really has been wanting to do a lightsaber for a couple of years, and we kind of just were able to tie all those things together, and have a wonderful time. Also, just one last shout out to Portillo's, which basically fed Logan for half of his trip.
I'm
Yeah.
sad we don't have it here because like I would
Don't even
totally
get me
still go
started,
right
Frank. Don't
now.
even get me
Like
started.
I'm
Yeah,
I
it's
after having it again after so long, like
yeah.
2+ years or whatever. Now all of a sudden I was like even earlier I was like, man, I wish I could go get like an Italian beef or
Portillo's. I
whatever.
would love it. Yeah.
Yeah, we did. There are 4 Portillos in the greater Phoenix area: Tempe, Scottsdale, Glendale, and Avondale. We did 3 of the 4 with Logan while he was here. I did
Hell
3 of
yeah.
the 4. Frank was there for 2 of them, and the only one we did not hit was Avondale because that's just on the BFE end of town from where I live. So it's like we could have done that one or the Glendale one coming back in from Disneyland, and we did the Glendale one. Shout out to the Henderson family, because I'm pretty sure that's their local Portillo's. So yeah, that was that was that Disneyland trip that we made. Fun one. Great getting to reminisce and think back. Oh, one other thing I just want to shout out to the people who got engaged as we were like leaving.
Oh, yeah.
the
Oh, yeah.
castle.
Leaving. Yeah.
As we
Dude,
were
she
walking
took so
out of the
long to
park.
say yes. I was so scared.
I don't
and
even.
also
I was me and Trevor
shout
were
out
trying to
the
get out of the way
churros.
of their picture.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
should, like,
100%.
get out of there.
I just
quickly.
wanted out. I just wanted out of there.
Yeah.
I was like,
When I realized what was happening, we walked over. I literally like for like a good like 5 seconds just like stayed by the family as everybody was like kind of like waiting to be like, yay, congratulations, because she hadn't said yes yet. And then finally she's like, stand up, oh my gosh, and like yes, and kissed him and everything. Everybody was like, yay.
Yeah,
it was great.
that was definitely like a fun, like that was a real way to cap off the Disneyland evening. Was after doing the last of our stuff in Galaxy's Edge, we went through Fantasyland to get like churros and stuff, and then we walked through the castle, and as we were like walking across the drawbridge of the castle, just stumbled right into a proposal, and and basically that was on our way out of the park. So shout out to that whole adventure. Lots of good fun times. Thank you all for joining me for it. I think
always
that is gonna do it for this episode. Thank you for joining me to reminisce and think back fondly on our trip a week ago. Always fun, just kind of shooting the shit with you guys and enjoying all the fun we had. Let's go around the metaphorical table with any plugs we might have. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
You know what? Want to give a massive shout out to That Bond Show. Which is that what it's called? Did I botch that?
You nailed it.
No,
Yeah,
I nailed it. Okay,
correct.
yeah, That Bond Show. New episodes come out every Saturday over at youtube.com/thatnerdysite. You are going to be getting an episode soon, or relatively soon, I suppose, where Frank and I will be joining the Bond Boys for a really good movie that is one of our Frank and my particular favorite Bond films. So excited to kind of drop in to this podcast. We're super excited.
Cool. You can follow Frank at Irrelevant Jokes. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Frank?
Yeah. Besides echoing that shout out, I also want to give a shout out to our Game of the Year, That Nerdy Site show. It's still, I think, one of the most recent episodes at this point, but that still was a great time to kind of go, all of us break down our Game of the Years and kind of have a great discussion. And my write up of my list should be going up on the site soon.
Cool.
Same actually for mine.
Yep. You can follow Logan at Lefty Logie. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Logan?
I will echo the shout out for That Bond Show. As of this recording, you can listen to the first 4 episodes we've done over Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, and Thunderball. And like Cam said, stay tuned for like a month from when you listen to this for the Live and Let Die episode. But it'll be a great one. And then I'll also give a shout out to the episode of That News You Care About that is currently live, that we did over the news of Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard from last week. I thought that was a really good conversation between myself and Trevor.
Cool. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. I will shout out all of the above, as well as our Let's Plays that go live every Tuesday and Thursday over at youtube.com/thatnerdysite, as well as That D Plus Show. If you like the Disney stuff that we spent the last 3 hours talking about, you might like That D Plus Show, which is our weekly podcast where we dive into something over on Disney Plus, and spoilers, potentially maybe other streaming services in the coming months. But currently, we got a whole bunch of stuff, Disney-centric stuff over there on That D Plus Show. So you can enjoy us talking about, Disney Channel original movies or Marvel movies. We did The Eternals last week. Cameron and I did Encanto a couple weeks ago, and all that stuff. So, you can go listen back to our Summer of Star Wars from last summer, where we went through and watched every Star Wars movie. So you can go check out all that fun stuff. You follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site, or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you for listening. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.